Chapter 905. Tang Zheng and the others left the imperial city. Although number 1 really wanted him to explain the matter about the dragon, he did not dare to stop them. The sky was already turning white, and the morning glow was slowly rising. However, the capital city had already woken up and was abnormally noisy. Many residents stood in the streets and alleys, looking up at the imperial city one after another. The commotion last night was so big that it was still vivid in their minds, especially the few lights that rose into the sky in the capital city. It was like a sci-fi movie, making people wonder if aliens had arrived. Many police cars and policemen were in the streets and alleys. The policemen were all persuading the residents to stop watching and explaining the strange phenomenon last night. Tang Zheng stopped and listened for a few words. He could not help but admire the level of lies that the government had fabricated. They actually said that the methane in the sewage system under the imperial city had accumulated for too many years and had exploded. As for the few lights, it was a normal phenomenon caused by the refraction and reflection of the explosion's flames through the clouds. The breathtaking dragon's roar was an enhanced effect caused by the resonance of the shock wave from the explosion with the air. Because it was dark, only a few people saw the huge figures of the mecha, the 4 symbols, and Yamada no Orochi in the imperial city. Therefore, the government did not directly refute the rumors about these giants. In addition, the government also refuted the rumors about the werewolves and bloodlings a few days ago, saying that they were animals that had escaped from a zoo. Whether the public believed it or not, the government believed it anyway. This prevarication made many people speechless. Did they really take the people for fools? Overwhelming publicity, whether online or in real life, the government's refutation of the rumors filled the people's eardrums. Public opinion could distort gold, and accumulation could destroy bones. Gradually, some people also believed these words. As long as people believed it, it was naturally like a single spark could start a prairie fire. The voices of doubt gradually disappeared in tea, rice, oil, and salt, and the huge pressure of survival and work. It was only an occasional topic of conversation after dinner. Therefore, Tang Zheng was wrong. Although the incident this time was big, it did not have much of an impact on the ordinary people, nor did it cause the uproar he predicted. The existence of cultivators was still a mystery. Although more people knew about it, the general public was still in the dark. Of course, this was a story for later. After Tang Zheng and the others returned to the villa, the others were waiting quietly in the villa. Seeing them return, they were relieved. Last night, they were really worried the whole night and didn't sleep a wink. This was especially true for Lan Yu. Her eyes were red, and it was obvious that she had been crying. Seeing that Tang Zheng had returned, she hurriedly ran over and asked about his well-being. After confirming that Tang Zheng was safe and sound, she finally felt relieved. What happened? Why is there such a big commotion? Everyone looked at Tang Zheng with burning eyes. Tang Zheng did not mention anything about the 5-clawed golden dragon. He simply explained the battle with Yamada no Orochi. Everyone was shaken to the core. Marshall was silent for a while before asking, "Where's Junko?" He had seen this person before and had a deep impression of her. He might have escaped. Tang Zheng did not place this woman in his eyes. Without the 100 transformations Star-Lord, she would not be able to stir up any waves. Everyone spoke one after another, consoling each other for a while. Finally, they confirmed that the storm had passed and the clouds had dispersed. They couldn't help but reveal smiles on their faces. "Tang Zheng, can I have a word with you?" Suddenly, Princess N walked over and said. Tang Zheng frowned suspiciously and asked, "What's the matter?" "Nicholas has been destroyed, and Rockefeller will definitely fall. As for the remnants of the Atlantic Empire, they are nothing to worry about. My father asked you when you will implement that plan." Princess N had only received the call last night, so she took the opportunity to ask. The news of Nicholas's death had already spread throughout many countries. Although the Atlantic Empire claimed that he had died of illness at home, those who knew the inside story knew that Nicholas had fallen into the hands of Tang Zheng. At that time, Tang Zheng and the royal families of many European countries had a secret agreement. If Nicholas was destroyed, the Rockefeller family's property would be divided among them. However, other than Sweden, the royal families of the other countries had already changed their minds. Now that the Swedish king had taken the initiative to mention this matter, it seemed that he was coveting the fat meat of Rockefeller and was preparing to make the first move. However, the Swedish royal family alone was obviously unable to compete with a group of tigers and wolves, so they were preparing to join forces with Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng still remembered that the Swedish king did not add insult to injury, so after thinking for a while, he said, "After a few days, when things are settled here, I will go to your country." This time, not only was he going, but even Mu Hongyan had to go, because there were many business operations, which was not his strong suit. Moreover, Mu Hongyan had already made arrangements in Europe and now was the harvest season, so of course she could not be absent. As for Tang Zheng, he was going to hold the line, so that the rascals would not dare to look down on Mu Hongyan, a woman, so that her actions would be smoother. And heard this and smiled with relief, then came to Tian Chanzi's side and said, "Master, my father invited you to visit my country. I wonder if Master can do me the honor?" After he finished speaking, he looked at him with a smile, blinking his sparkling eyes like a big doll. Tian Chanzi's heart skipped a beat. He had always been thinking about the spar, and was sure that the Swedish royal family definitely had more than two of them. Since the other party had taken the initiative to invite him, it would be difficult for him to refuse, so he went to take a look and see if he could get more spar. Tian Chanzi purposely muttered to himself for a while, then pretended to say, "Then let's go." Tang Zheng didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He was only fooling people who weren't familiar with him. Tang Zheng knew that he probably couldn't wait any longer in his heart. A burst of hurried footsteps came from outside the house. The Yen family, the Qin family, Yi Tianlei, and Feng Xinyang had actually come at the same time. From their stern expressions, it could be seen that even they were frightened by the commotion last night, especially when Yen Padian knew about the existence of the five-clawed golden dragon. He was extremely worried, afraid that the five-clawed golden dragon would be captured by bad people, and the situation would be serious. This time, Tang Zheng still did not explicitly mention the matter of the five-clawed golden dragon. Although the officials had already confirmed this matter, they still would not publicize it. Therefore, he chose to keep it a secret and not disclose it to the public. Since the enemy is dead and has escaped, can we remove our inescapable net in the capital? Yen Padian asked for Tang Zheng's opinion. Tang Zheng pondered for a moment, then said, "Go all out to hunt down Song Yu." But thinking about it, with Song Yu's style of steering according to the wind, she would have long since escaped if she didn't see it right. Forget it, let's retreat. However, we must pay attention to the movements in the capital in the future, especially since I will be leaving for a period of time. You must be even more careful. Where are you going when you leave? Yen Padian was shocked. Now that the capital was in a precarious situation, would there be any bad effects if he left? Tang Zheng saw through his thoughts, shook his head and said, "Don't worry, Fuya will stay behind, and with you guys in charge, the capital will not be able to cause any big waves." Actually, Tang Zheng could guess the attitude of the officials. Now that the successive upheavals had caused the officials to be extremely passive, there were a lot of discussions among the people, and there were a lot of criticisms. At this time, stability was the most important thing. Moreover, the 100 Transformation Star Lord was injured and would not come out for the time being. As for the Azure Dragon Palace, Tang Zheng subconsciously thought of the chief. His attitude towards the Azure Dragon Palace seemed to be rather ambiguous. It seemed that he at least knew something that Tang Zheng did not know. Perhaps out of consideration for stability, the chief would also stop the Azure Dragon Palace from causing any more trouble. Therefore, the capital that was in the center of the storm was actually the safest place for the next period of time. Seeing that Tang Zheng was so confident, although everyone had doubts in their hearts, they put them away. They already trusted Tang Zheng blindly, and would not easily question his decision. The Yen family and the Qin family left together. Yi Tianlei and Feng Xinyang stayed behind and looked at their daughter. The two of them looked at each other, not knowing what to say. Especially when he saw Tang Zheng's room full of women, many messy thoughts appeared in his mind. In the end, Yi Tianlei felt that it was too rash for his daughter to stay in Tang Zhang's house like this, so he waved his hand and said, "Ding Dang, let's go home." Yi Ding Dang was reluctant to part, but she was too embarrassed to say that she wouldn't go home. In fact, in the past few days, when she had been with everyone day and night, she actually had a feeling of gradually merging with them. She originally thought that she would have a very strong resistance in her heart, but it did not erupt as expected. This made her very surprised, and no matter how hard she scratched her head, she could not think of a reason. When Tang Zhang heard this, he also looked at Yi Ding Dang somewhat awkwardly. He couldn't stay, but he also couldn't not stay. This was really a difficult problem. Fang Shishir seemed to see his dilemma and intimately held Yi Ding Dang's hand. She said with a smile, "Uncle, just let Ding Dang stay here. There are many rooms here, and we can even be companions and whisper to each other." Fang Shishir and Yi Ding Dang had gone through thick and thin together. In the past few days, they had been together day and night, so their relationship had improved greatly. Although Tang Zhang was surprised, he looked at Fang Shishir very gratefully. Fang Shishir smiled sweetly and gave him a reassuring look. Yi Ding Dang did not expect Fang Shishir to be so magnanimous and actually take the initiative to ask her to stay. Not only Yi Ding Dang, but even the others looked at Fang Shishir with incomparable surprise. Everyone knew that Fang Shishir was Tang Zhang's girlfriend in name. Moreover, the unclear relationship between Tang Zhang and Yi Ding Dang was obvious to all. She actually took the initiative to ask Yi Ding Dang to stay. This kind of breadth of mind was really hard for others to reach. Wu opened her mouth, but in the end, she did not say anything. Although she could accept Tang Zhang's romantic affairs, for her to immediately be so magnanimous, with her personality, it was impossible for her to do so. Lu Qingmei's position was even more awkward. But seeing Yi Tianlei and his wife's hesitant appearance, and then looking at Tang Zhang, she took a deep breath and resolutely stood up and persuaded, "Shishir is right. With so many girls living together, we are actually quite happy. We can also take care of each other." Yi Tianlei slapped his forehead. Heavens, even the teacher came out to ask them to stay. That's not right. Teacher Lu seemed to have always been living here. Could it be that with Tang Zhang, he did not dare to think about it anymore? This relationship was too messy. He was a bit dizzy, so he kept his mouth shut and did not say anything. He gave the initiative to Feng Xinyang. Feng Xinyang thoughtfully looked at the people involved. The corners of her mouth immediately blossomed into a smile. She kindly said, "Since it's like this, then stay." Yi Ding Dang's heart relaxed. She also subconsciously wanted to stay. Chapter 906. Feng Xinyang and Yi Tianlei left. On the way back, Yi Tianlei couldn't help but complain, "What's wrong with you? You actually agreed to such an absurd thing?" Feng Xinyang's lips curled up and said, "Absurd? Of course it's absurd. Didn't you see the situation in that room? You're pushing your daughter into a fire pit." Yi Tianlei earnestly said. "Is it really a fire pit? You men only know how to look at the surface and not the essence." Feng Xinyang shook her head and sighed. Yi Tianlei suspiciously looked at his wife. "What do you mean by that? Could it be that you still don't understand our daughter's thoughts? Her heart is completely entrusted to the little handsome guy. If you let her come back, wouldn't that be giving the little handsome guy to someone else? How can I, Feng Xinyang's daughter, do such a foolish thing?" "But," Feng Xinyang domineeringly waved her hand, "no buts. If you don't rely on yourself to fight for your own happiness, do you expect others to give it to you? How can there be such a good thing?" Yi Tianlei helplessly looked at his wife and was speechless. Feng Xinyang's thoughts turned as she recalled the scene just now. She thoughtfully said, "Don't you think that Lu Qingmei and Tang Zheng, the two of them?" Yi Tianlei was shocked. Actually, he also had this kind of misconception before. However, he immediately denied it. After all, the two of them had a teacher-student relationship. Wasn't his imagination running wild? He actually thought in that direction. It can't be. Feng Xinyang's gaze was deep as she muttered to herself for a while and said, "The little handsome guy's charm is too great. It's hard to say. After all, the two of them aren't that different in age. Is Tang Zheng's charm that great?" Yi Tianlei was skeptical. Feng Xinyang rolled her eyes and said, "Of course. You men don't understand. Only us women know what we like. If I was 20 years younger, I would definitely chase after the little handsome guy without hesitation." "Stop. The more you say, the more ridiculous it is." Yi Tianlei did not know whether to laugh or cry. Tang Zheng and the others went back to their rooms to rest. Tian Chanzi left again. Huang Xiang stood at the door like a guardian, guarding against possible dangers that could appear at any time. Tang Zheng carried Xiaobai back to the room alone. Xiaobai was so lazy that he didn't even want to open his eyes. Based on his previous experience, Little White's transformation would take a very long time. It wouldn't be over in a short period of time, so he directly put it into Summer World. He sat cross-legged on the bed, but didn't sleep. He closed his eyes and rested, recalling every detail of the night. Without a doubt, although this night was incomparably dangerous, it was still a fruitful harvest. The hidden danger of the five-clawed golden dragon had been eliminated. He didn't need to worry about the officials and the Azure Dragon Palace getting involved with the five-clawed golden dragon. In addition, after the five-clawed golden dragon regained his freedom in the future, he wouldn't hurt ordinary people. This was what Tang Jing valued the most. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to get over the hurdle in his heart if he released a calamity that would bring disaster to the world. Another gain was that Xiaobai had eaten the inner core of Yamada no Orochi. He was full of anticipation for what Xiaobai would transform into. Even Qi Yu was full of expectations. After all, Xiaobai was the descendant of the legendary holy beast of the witch tribe. Qi Yu was also full of curiosity. The last gain was Qi Yu's heart blood, which allowed him to temporarily get rid of the possible threat of Qi Yu, so Qi Yu didn't dare to act rashly. The energy in that drop of heart blood was too strong. It was like the vast sea, and the energy was like the seawater in the sea. Tang Zheng had only absorbed a little, but he had already reached the 8th grade of the Gold Core realm. Of course, he wouldn't stop here. He wanted to absorb more energy in one go. "Tang Zheng, what are you doing?" Qi Yu knew what Tang Zheng was thinking and hurriedly asked. The inner demons were watching the show from the side. They gloated and said, "In order to improve his cultivation, the young man absorbed a little energy from your heart blood. You have so many opinions and are so noisy. You really don't have any manners." Qi Yu was furious. "He didn't absorb your energy. Of course you can make sarcastic remarks." The inner demons chuckled. "If he can absorb my energy for his own use and improve his cultivation, of course I don't mind contributing a little." The inner demon's generosity made Qi Yu even angrier. "It's easy for you to say that. You clearly know that Tang Jing can't absorb your energy, so you're pretending to be generous. Don't think that I don't know what you're thinking. Tang Jing, don't listen to the inner demons. If my energy decreases, he can suppress me. This is not good for you." Qi Yu tried his best to persuade him, but Tang Jing snorted. Qi Yu's words could only be trusted 30%. Moreover, he had already proven that he could increase his cultivation by one level just by absorbing a little bit of energy. Qi Yu wasn't affected at all, so even if he absorbed a little more, it wouldn't hurt him. Tang Zheng turned a deaf ear to Qi Yu's words. He continued to circulate his energy. His dantian began to shine brightly. Strands of energy were extracted from his blood and merged into his jindan. "Don't. Tang Zheng, quickly stop. You definitely can't." Qi Yu wailed as he begged. Tang Zheng didn't seem to hear him. He just continued to circulate his energy. The inner demon couldn't stop laughing. "Good job, young man. Don't listen to his hypocritical cries." Qi Yu was unable to restrain his anger. Opposing each other, the two of them started to quarrel again. Tang Zheng was completely focused on his cultivation. He could feel that the Jin Qi in his meridians was increasing bit by bit. Especially the ninth main meridian, it was emitting bursts of golden light. It was filled with a mysterious aura. Tang Zheng had been looking forward to this meridian that had merged with the dragon vein. His intuition told him that one day, there would be an unexpected change, or even a miracle. Otherwise, the ninth main meridian of the Skywalker would be useless. It would only be a little bit more Jin Qi, which would be too low. It was a pity that even Chiyu, an older generation Skywalker, couldn't say anything, so he could only suppress this curiosity for now. The Jin Qi rose with a whoosh, and the energy in his blood was not sucked away by much. This proved Tang Zheng's conjecture. Chiyu purposely shouted happily, not wanting him to lose even the slightest bit of energy. How could Tang Zheng let him do as he wished? Boom! Suddenly, a rumbling sound came out from his body. His bones and tendons crackled non-stop, and a faint golden light appeared on the surface of his skin. Tang Zheng suddenly opened his eyes, overjoyed. Ninth grade Jin Dan. No, it wasn't that simple. His body was still changing. He could feel that his skin, muscles, bones, and meridians were all changing, becoming tougher bit by bit. The Jin Qi tempered every part of his body, imperceptibly changing. Primal Chaos Vajra Spell. Tang Zheng suddenly remembered what was going on. This was the prelude to the Primal Chaos Vajra spell's breakthrough. He immediately activated the Primal Chaos Vajra spell, and as expected, the speed of the Jin Qi increased, quickly gathering towards every part of his body, tempering his body. His body was like a weapon, and the Jin Qi was like a furnace, tempering his body over and over again, allowing him to reach a more perfect state. This was a long process. Tang Zheng silently absorbed the energy from his heart's blood, transforming it into Jin Qi to supply this tempering process. Chi Yu's voice became weaker, as if he was tired from shouting. He watched Tang Zheng absorb the energy from his heart's blood with exhaustion. The inner demons commented complacently, "The Skywalker is indeed a genius in cultivation." The change in the young man's cultivation can be said to be astonishing. This is your Witch Clan's Primal Chaos Vajra spell, right? TSK, when you reach the final stage of indestructibility in the future, you will have an indestructible body. As long as you have an indestructible body, no matter how much damage your body receives, you will still have a chance of survival. Chiyu, the reason why you were able to survive the Battle of Zhuolu was probably because of the Primal Chaos Vajra spell. Chiyu was already numb to it. He snorted coldly and could not be bothered with the inner demons. The speaker did not mean it, but the listener meant it. Tang Zheng did not know that the Primal Chaos Vajra spell was so powerful before. It turned out that the reason why Chiyu was able to survive was because of the Primal Chaos Vajra spell. Then he had truly underestimated this cultivation technique in the past. He had a treasure mountain, but he did not know how to exploit it. Since he did not place enough importance on this cultivation technique in the past, he would have to place more importance on it in the future, just like the Dragon God method. If the Primal Chaos Vajra spell had a breakthrough this time, it would naturally be extremely good. He immediately abandoned all distracting thoughts and silently circulated the Primal Chaos Vajra spell. However, the tempering process this time was not temporary, so he was not in a hurry. He gradually placed his attention on the dragon seal. The little five-clawed golden dragon was full of energy, as if it had sensed his thoughts. It shook its head and wagged its tail, making it look even more adorable. Little golden dragon, I wonder what you will become in the future. Tang Zheng thought in anticipation. Even the five-clawed golden dragon was unable to truly explain the changes in his body, so he could only rely on himself to figure it out step by step. After seeing the little golden dragon, his consciousness naturally sank into the dragon seal and entered the Langya Pavilion. The scene in front of him changed. The towering and ancient Langya Pavilion stood in front of him. "Fifth floor, I'm here." Tang Zheng strolled into the Langya Pavilion and quickly passed through the first floor. When he reached the second floor, he slowed down and suppressed his excitement. When he reached the third floor, his state of mind had completely returned to normal. He did not know what was waiting for him, so he did not dare to let his guard down. Back then on the fourth floor, if he had not walked out of the exorcist mirror's illusion, the consequences would have been unimaginable. Therefore, although the exorcist mirror was good, it was also risky. Otherwise, if it could easily exorcise a person's inner demons, why did even a peerless powerhouse like Chi Yu still have inner demons? When he stepped on the 4th floor, he subconsciously glanced at the exorcist mirror. It was still quietly placed not far away. This time, he did not fall into the illusion as soon as he stepped on this floor like the last time. However, when he saw the exorcist mirror, another thought flashed through his mind. There were so many people in the Dragon Clan. If someone did not walk out of the illusion of the exorcist mirror, what would the consequences be? This question could only be answered by the real Dragon Clan. He, an imposter, would not know the truth for the time being. He walked up to the 5th floor and glanced out of the window. This was already very high, so he could see the scenery below. However, the scene in the distance was very blurry and could not be seen clearly. Only then did he realize that after coming to the Langya Pavilion so many times, he had only entered the Langya Pavilion and had not explored the places outside the Langya Pavilion. Those places were chaotic, as if shrouded in fog. Chapter 907. Tang Zheng withdrew his gaze and turned to look at the 5th floor. There were no more bookshelves or weapons in the room. Instead, there were bronze figures. Each bronze figure was in a different posture. One of its hands was grasping in the air as if it was holding something in its palm. Their expressions were different. Some were angry, some were happy, and some were sad. It was a vivid portrayal of a person's 7 emotions and 6 desires. When Tang Zheng saw this scene, he was very curious. What was so strange about these bronze figures? Were they like the 4 symbols venerables? But their bodies were not tall. They were no different from ordinary people. There were 36 of them, and they stood in picturesque disorder in every corner of the room. Tang Zheng cautiously took a few steps forward and walked to the center of the bronze figures. But before he could stand still, a burst of sword chi shot toward him from the hands of the bronze figure in front of him. He jumped in fright and hurriedly retreated. Huh! But he found that he was in a quagmire. He could only watch as the sword chi attacked, but he could not dodge. Pooh! The sword chi shot into his body, but it did not cause any harm. He only felt that there was an additional burst of sharp sword chi in his meridians. He did not understand what was going on. This was not like the lower floors. The secret manuals and treasures on this floor were offensive. Just like the exorcism mirror, opportunities were accompanied by dangers. He did not dare to lower his guard. Whoosh! 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 Several more bursts of sword chi shot out from the hands of the bronze figures in all directions. Only then did Tang Zheng notice that they were grasping in the air. It was very similar to the posture of holding a sword. The bursts of sword chi also shot out from their hands. Just like before, Tang Zheng tried his best to dodge, but he could do nothing. He could only watch as the sword chi shot into his body. 36 bursts of sword chi shot through his meridians like wild horses out of control. He felt like his heart was being pierced by thousands of arrows. Ah! He subconsciously cried out in pain. Cold sweat broke out all over his body, and his cheeks and neck turned red. What is going on? He did not know what to do and hurriedly tried to calm the bursts of sword chi. But they were very strange. They were as slippery as loaches. He could not calm them at all. Whoosh! Suddenly, a gust of wind rang in his ears again. Tang Zheng hurriedly raised his head and looked over. He saw the bronze men moving, shuttling back and forth, as if following a certain trajectory. Waves of invisible sword chi rose under their guidance, intertwining with each other in mid-air, finally forming a pattern of yin and yang fish. Tang Zheng was shocked. He stared at the yin-yang fish, and the pattern began to spin rapidly again. The atmosphere in the large room changed rapidly, giving people a sense of oppression. It was as if a huge rock was pressing down on their chest, making it hard to breathe. Tang Zheng was not in the mood to pay attention to this change, because his meridians were almost riddled with holes from the 36 sword qis. Ah! Tang Zheng growled as his golden core spun rapidly. His genuine qi surged like a flood, rushing into his meridians in an attempt to resist the sword qi. He could not help but think that if Qi Yu and the inner demons were here, they might be able to guide him. But once they entered the Langya Pavilion, their consciousness was completely blocked, and there was no way for them to take half a step forward. Therefore, he could only rely on himself. He gradually realized that although the Langya Pavilion was a treasure house, there were also many dangers. Opportunities and risks coexisted. If he could not resolve the risks, he was afraid that the gains would not make up for the losses. He had an impulse to ask the five-clawed golden dragon. In the past, the five-clawed golden dragon had always told him to explore the Langya Pavilion by himself, but he did not tell him that there were so many dangers. But now was not the time to complain. The most important thing was to get rid of the sword qi. The genuine qi surged into his meridians and clashed with the sword qi. The sword qi finally stopped and was forced to retreat. Tang Zheng was overjoyed. In a spurt of energy, his genuine qi surged and forced the sword qi to retreat. Oh no! Seeing the sword qi's retreat path, Tang Zheng shouted because the sword qi had retreated directly into his mind. The brain was the most mysterious and fragile part of the human body. If the sword qi was so sharp, wouldn't it be terrible? But it was too late. The sword qi retreated into his brain like a fish swimming into the sea, overturning the river and sea. The sword qi moved horizontally and pierced into various areas of his brain. The genuine qi quickly blocked, but the sword qi was ready to be released. In an instant, there was a momentum that was out of control. Tang Zheng screamed and held his head. His brain seemed to be about to explode. Suddenly, a golden light rushed out from the little golden dragon in the dragon's seal and rushed into his brain. The crazy sword qi immediately calmed down. The pain stopped. Tang Zheng looked inside his brain in disbelief. The golden light released by the little golden dragon had such a magical effect that it completely overshadowed the genuine qi. The sword qi calmed down, but did not disappear. It intertwined and wandered in his mind and slowly condensed. Not long after, it turned into a yin-yang fish, exactly the same as the one in midair. At the same time, the yin-yang fish in midair descended and covered Tang Zheng's head. It rotated for a while and directly sank into his scalp. The two yin-yang fish merged and bloomed two rays of light, one black and one white. Tang Zheng was startled as he discovered that one sword technique after another rose into the air from the yin-yang fish and was imprinted in his mind. Taiji yin-yang sword technique. A few big words flashed and disappeared into the yin-yang fish. Tang Zheng was stunned. It was unbelievable. This was a set of sword technique. The posture of the bronze figures was a sword move, and the sword qi that shot out also represented a sword move. In the end, the sword qi was appeased and branded in his brain, forming a complete set of 36 moves of Taiji yin-yang sword technique. This set of sword technique was a combination of yin and yang, and it was perfectly compatible with the Tao of heaven and earth. It was a rare sword technique. Although Tang Zheng had not learned it yet, he could already tell that it was definitely more mysterious and powerful than the heavenly fairy sword technique. Hadn't he been looking for a more powerful sword technique? He didn't expect to find it. However, the process of searching was too dangerous, and he almost lost his life. If I didn't hold on just now, would I really die here? He couldn't help but ponder. No, Langya Pavilion is too mysterious. I have to ask the five-clawed golden dragon again. It didn't say anything before, but this time, it's not up to it. He didn't know that the Taiji yin-yang sword technique focused on the balance of yin and yang. It was not a problem for ordinary people to cultivate it, but Tang Zheng had the 9-yang saint body, the body with the heaviest yang qi in the world. Although this kind of physique was rare for cultivation, and could allow one to cultivate many techniques with twice the result with half the effort, the Taiji yin-yang sword technique was an exception. Therefore, to an ordinary person, this was a very simple matter, but to Tang Zheng, it was very dangerous. If it was an ordinary person just now, after the 36 sword chi shot into their body, they would definitely not scatter around. This was because an ordinary person's body was in balance of yin and yang. Even if there was a deviation, it was still within an acceptable range. The 36 sword chi would smoothly converge into this set of sword technique and be branded in one's mind. However, Tang Zheng was different. His physique was too special. This was originally an advantage, but it had become a fatal flaw here. But at the final moment, the little golden dragon and the dragon seal showed its might and finally calmed the restless sword chi, pulling Tang Zheng back from the gates of hell. Tang Zheng still didn't know the reason behind this. He just looked at the Taiji Yin-Yang sword technique curiously. Although there were 36 moves, they were subdivided into 6 levels. Each level contained 6 sword moves. One had to gradually cultivate the corresponding sword moves in order to enter the next level. He simply started to cultivate. The first move of the first level was very simple. With a thought, a bronze man appeared in Tang Zheng's mind. It quickly moved, and a surging sword chi shot out from its hand with great power. Tang Zheng remembered this move, but subconsciously turned his head to look around, as if he wanted to see if the bronze men were still there. They had unknowingly returned to their original state, so quiet that it was as if they had never moved. The air was calm, and there was no trace of sword chi. It was as if this was an ordinary room, and they were dead bronze men. Tang Zheng shook his head. This sword technique was too mysterious. It had actually been integrated into these 36 bronze men. It was really unheard of, and he didn't know who had created it. But there was no doubt that the person who had created this sword technique must have great wisdom, great perseverance, and exceptional cultivation. He restrained his thoughts, and didn't think about these illusory questions. He focused all his thoughts on the sword technique. But suddenly, he was stunned. His eyes were filled with disbelief. This was because he actually had no recollection of the sword technique that he had just learned. One had to know that he had a photographic memory. He could remember almost anything that he saw once. But why did he have no recollection of the sword technique he had just seen? He only knew that this sword technique existed. As for how to use it, he had no clue. His mind was blank. Strange, too strange. His expression became particularly serious. He racked his brains, as if trying to remember a little bit, but still came up empty-handed. He couldn't help but immerse his mind in that sword technique, wanting to learn it again. That sword technique had actually disappeared. It had completely disappeared from his mind, as if it had never appeared. But he knew that it had been imprinted in his mind, so how could it disappear in the blink of an eye? It was too strange. He subconsciously looked at the yin and yang fish in his mind. It was calm, and slowly rotating. But there was an additional white line in the black fish. Tang Zheng was shocked. He was sure that the black fish was as black as ink, and definitely didn't have this impurity-like white line. He couldn't understand it. The first technique he had learned had completely disappeared, and he couldn't remember it at all. And there was an additional white line in the black fish. Could it be that there was some connection between the two? Tang Zheng shook his head. He really couldn't understand this. He could only suppress the doubts in his heart and ask others for help in the future. Chapter 908. The second sword technique was not complicated either. Tang Zheng followed suit, and when the small copper man's movements appeared in his mind, he also followed suit. This time, his consciousness did not leave his brain. He wanted to firmly remember this sword technique, but strangely, his memory became more and more blurry. Not long later, he could not remember how to use this sword technique at all. His entire body stiffened as his arm hung in the air. No matter how he gestured, he felt extremely awkward. He could not find any sense of familiarity at all. He was stunned. This sword move had disappeared from his mind, and it was under the condition that his consciousness was extremely clear. This was not evil, it was simply like seeing a ghost. He scratched his ears and cheeks, unable to think of a reason why. I don't believe it. Let's learn the third move. Tang Zheng thought about it, but the third copper man did not appear in his mind. Instead, his head hurt as if it was being pricked by needles, causing him to temporarily lose his ability to think. After a long while, the pain finally disappeared. His brows were tightly knitted together. Looks like I still can't learn the third move. Even that copper man didn't appear. In fact, when my brain thought about the third move, it actually hurt like hell. This sword technique is really powerful. I'm already at the 9th stage of the Jindan stage, but I can only learn 2 moves. How high would my cultivation be to learn the remaining 3 moves? How high would my cultivation be to learn all 14 moves? His expression darkened. So what if he finished learning it? If he didn't learn it, he would forget about it completely. He temporarily threw the Taiji 2 forms sword technique to the back of his mind and observed this floor to see if there were any other useful things or introductions to this sword technique. However, after searching for a long time, other than these 36 copper men, there was nothing else of value. He subconsciously glanced at the stairs leading to the 6th floor, and a complicated expression flashed across his eyes. In the past, he had always thought that there was a treasure trove on every floor, but now he understood that it was not as simple as a treasure trove. At the same time, there was also a huge hidden danger. Time flew by. His time in the Langya Pavilion was up, and he was forced to leave. He slowly opened his eyes and found that he was still sitting cross-legged on the bed. The faint golden light on his skin had actually disappeared, and his bronze skin was as tough as iron. His heart skipped a beat, and he was pleasantly surprised. Vajra body. The chaotic Vajra spell has actually completed the tempering of the body, reaching the 4th level, Vajra. He touched his own skin, which was even more lustrous than before. He raised the War Soul's sword and stabbed himself, but it did not pierce through. Even if the War Soul's sword was not activated, it could still cut through hair and cut iron like mud, but it could not hurt his skin. This was the true invulnerability of the Vajra body. Of course, if he activated his innate chi, the power of the War Soul's sword would increase greatly, and his Vajra body might not be able to block it. He wasn't bored enough to actually use his own body for such a dangerous experiment. He stood up and stretched his muscles. His bones crackled as if he had been reborn. Young man, your chaotic Vajra spell has actually broken through. Congratulations. The inner demons congratulated him. Chiyu coldly snorted, and said, he is a celestial, cultivating the chaotic Vajra spell is already twice the result with half the effort, what is there to congratulate? The inner demons chuckled, you should congratulate him on his progress. Only you would be so petty. Isn't it just him absorbing a little bit of your blood and sweat? Young man, why don't you continue to absorb a little more energy in one go and break through the Yuanying realm in one go? Inner demons, you're going too far. Chiyu was furious at such provocative words, afraid that Tang Zheng would really do it, and hurriedly advised, Tang Zheng, don't listen to his bewitchment. From the Aurous core to the Yuanying is a very important transition process. This is related to the speed of your cultivation in the future, as well as how far you can go in the future. If the condensed Yuanying is too weak, then you won't be able to do much in the future, and your cultivation will stop at the Yuanying realm. Tang Zheng was not a person who only listened to one side of the story. He remembered that when he was going from the fasting realm to the Aurous core realm, the Empyrean fairy had also said the same thing. The transition between realms was a very important period, and he definitely could not let his guard down. On this point, Chiyu was not lying. Of course, the other party definitely had his own selfish motives, and did not want Tang Zheng to absorb the energy of his heart's blood so recklessly. As for the inner demons, as expected, these two were not easy to deal with. The inner demons were digging a hole for him again. If he rashly broke through to the Yuanying stage, the condensed Yuanying would definitely not be good, and his future cultivation would naturally not be that high. In this way, the inner demons would have an opportunity to take control of his body. You're really good at scheming. Tang Zheng felt a chill run down his spine, and said unhappily, inner demons, I'll mute you for 3 days as punishment. Ah, what did I do? The inner demons pretended to be at a loss and asked. "Humph, you know very well what you did." Tang Zheng was too lazy to explain, and directly muted him. No matter how much the inner demons complained, they could not say a word. Hee, this is how you should deal with the inner demons. Qiyu also laughed gloatingly. These two were very happy to see the other party suffer. Tang Zheng recalled the various strange aspects of the Taiji Yin-Yang sword technique, and asked, "Qiyu, have you heard of the Taiji Yin-Yang sword technique?" Qiyu thought for a moment and said, "I don't know, there are thousands of techniques in the world, it is impossible for me to know all of them." Tang Zheng's expression darkened, and he did not give up and asked, "Then do you know what kind of technique will be forgotten immediately after practicing?" "Forget?" Qiyu was confused. The purpose of cultivating a cultivation technique is to remember it firmly. How could I forget? If you really forget, how can you use it in the future? Tang Zheng smiled bitterly, this was also his question. Seeing that Qiyu could not explain, he could only ask the five-clawed golden dragon to see if the dragon race knew a thing or two. "Tang Zheng, just now your consciousness was out of your body, what happened?" Qiyu suddenly asked curiously. When Tang Zheng moved in his mind, Qiyu also noticed this clue, but thinking about it, it was not strange, after all, Qiyu and the inner demons were too strong. But even if Tang Zheng's consciousness was out of his body, they would not have been able to seize control of this body at that time. "Nothing." Tang Zheng answered perfunctorily. "It is the so-called dragon seal of the dragon race. You have entered the Langya Pavilion." In the past, Qiyu had hidden in Tang Zheng's body and already knew a lot of secrets. Tang Zheng's pupils shrank, his whole body became cold, and a faint murderous aura flashed. "What is your purpose?" Qiyu heard the displeasure and caution in Tang Zheng's tone and hurriedly explained, "Don't misunderstand, I don't have any purpose, just purely out of curiosity. Even in my time, dragons were an absolutely mysterious existence, so I have an innate curiosity about dragons. Where dragons come from has always been a mystery. Now that the dragon race has left this world, where did they go? I think you also want to know. But now that you control the five-clawed golden dragon, this question will eventually be answered in the future." Tang Zheng coldly snorted, and bluntly warned, "You better not have any bad ideas, your hard work is still in my hands." "Of course, why would I make things difficult for myself? I am just purely curious. What kind of existence is the Langya Pavilion? How many treasures are hidden in it? The Taiji Yin-Yang sword technique you mentioned just now, was it found in the Langya Pavilion?" Tang Zheng said that he was really smart, but still said coldly, "So what if it is?" Qiyu sighed. "The Langya Pavilion is really unpredictable. With this treasure trove, you might really be able to go further than me in the future." "Really, don't you want to control my body?" "I definitely don't mean that." Qiyu quickly denied. Tang Zheng laughed jokingly, "Do you really think I will believe you?" After that, he ignored Qiyu and directly opened the door and walked out. It was already afternoon, the others had already rested. Lan Yu and Mu Hongyan were busy in the kitchen, the others were sitting together and chatting, or watching TV and playing with their phones, a scene of joy and harmony. When Nana saw Tang Zheng, she flew over, tiptoed, jumped up, and directly hooked her arms around Tang Zheng's neck. Her bell-like laughter was very pleasing to the ear. Nana hugged her and said, "Nana, we will go to primary school next semester." This was something that Mu Hongyan had mentioned to him before. After all, Nana had grown up, she still had to integrate into the life of her peers, and even more so, integrate into this society. She could not just cultivate at home. Nana pouted and said, "The other children are so childish, I want to stay at home to accompany my brother and cultivate with my master." Childish? Tang Zheng was stunned for a moment, hearing this word from the mouth of a child. He did not know whether to laugh or cry. "Where did you learn this word from?" Nana proudly raised her head and said, "Nana is so smart, of course it was self-taught." Tang Zheng tapped her pink forehead and said with a smile, "You don't even have a teacher, you really are a little mischievous. When you go to school in the future, you can't bully other students, especially not use magic to scare other students, understand? You have to be a good student. Nana has always been very good." Nan Nan will listen to Big Brother's words and won't casually use magic. This is our family's secret. Nan Nan pointed at everyone, clearly including everyone in this big family. Tang Jing nodded with gratification. Although Nana was still young, she was smart and quick-witted. There were many things that she could understand. There was no need to be long-winded. Suddenly, Tang Zheng looked towards the door and felt that there was someone outside. As expected, there was a knock on the door. Fang Shusher walked over to open the door. When she opened it, she was surprised to see the person outside and exclaimed, "It's you." "Hello, is Tang Zheng here?" a deep voice asked. Everyone turned their heads to look. When they saw who it was, their eyes widened in surprise. This was actually the chief who often appeared on the television news. There was probably no one in the country who was unfamiliar with him. Chapter 909. Tang Zheng walked over, nodded slightly, and said, "Bureau Chief, please come in." The bureau chief smiled at Tang Zheng, and there seemed to be less arrogance between his brows than before. He looked up at the house and said, "Your house is really not bad." "Thank you." The bureau chief nodded at everyone again. "Hello everyone." Other than Empyrean Fairy and Li Xiaotian, everyone else stood up to respond. These two people knew each other, but they didn't think much of each other. After all, Empyrean Fairy had even seen Qin Shi Huang. Other high officials were no different from ordinary people to him. Li Xiaotian had lost his memory and didn't recognize him at all. He even stared at him curiously. "Everyone, sit down. Don't be so reserved. I'm just here to visit everyone," the bureau chief said in an amiable and dignified manner. Tang Zheng was calm and composed. He gestured to everyone, and everyone sat down. After all, they were born and grew up here, so they subconsciously respected the bureau chief. Tang Zheng had seen it too many times, so he didn't feel anything. Seeing number one following behind the bureau chief, Tang Zheng knew that they weren't just here to take a look. They had a purpose, so he went straight to the point and said, "Let's go in and talk." The bureau chief nodded in understanding. The two entered the study. Number one stayed behind to guard the door, as if he didn't want anyone to come close. Everyone looked curiously at the tightly shut door and started to murmur curiously. Why is he looking for Tang Zheng? Maybe he's here to win over Tang Zheng? No, it must be related to what happened last night. It was such a big commotion. Then will Tang Zheng be in danger? Everyone's hearts tightened as they looked at each other. Yi Dingdang gritted her teeth and said fearlessly, "If he really dares to do anything to Tang Zheng, I won't let it go." "Me too," Fang Shusher hurriedly said as she shared a common enemy. Lu Qingmei said, "Me too," in her heart, but she didn't say anything. A bright light flashed in Wu's eyes. Although he did not say a word, his attitude was already very clear. Princess Anne didn't find it strange and said, "It's not as dangerous as you say. In Europe, it's common for the king's royal family to win over the elites. Besides, Tang Zheng isn't just an elite. He wouldn't dare to easily deal with Tang Zheng. After all, Princess Anne was experienced and knowledgeable." The Empyrean Fairy looked at her approvingly. Although Princess Anne's cultivation was the weakest among them, there was no doubt that she was more knowledgeable than the others. Tang Zheng has been letting her stay at home. Could it be that he's interested in her too? He's really flirtatious. The Empyrean Fairy secretly shook her head. Men were indeed jackals of the same tribe. Since ancient times, no matter if they were emperors, generals, ministers, or commoners, they were all the same. Seeing that the others were skeptical of Anne's words, the Empyrean Fairy said lightly, "Don't worry, she's right." The Empyrean Fairy's prestige was naturally not comparable to the others. Hearing her say this, everyone's worried hearts were relieved. They asked in surprise, "Really?" "Of course." Everyone was grinning from ear to ear as they looked at the door, trying to guess what was going on inside. Tang Zheng poured a cup of water for the bureau chief and sat down facing him. He asked, "Bureau chief, why are you looking for me in such a hurry?" He had already guessed it. It was probably the matter of the 5-clawed golden dragon. He was just asking the obvious. Last night, thanks to your help, we were able to defeat the 100-change Star Lord and kill that Yamada no Orochi. I'm here to thank you, the bureau chief said. These people are my enemies. Moreover, their arrival threatened the safety of commoners. Naturally, I can't shirk my responsibility. I'm very gratified that you can think this way. There's a saying that the greater the power, the greater the responsibility. For you to be able to bravely take on this heavy responsibility, I would like to sincerely thank you on behalf of the commoners in the capital. The bureau chief's face was solemn as he said sincerely. Bureau chief, you flatter me. Tang Zheng said modestly and took a sip of water. Since the other party didn't reveal his true intentions, he was happy to play dumb. The bureau chief pondered for a while and looked at Tang Zheng thoughtfully. Seeing that he didn't speak anymore, it seemed that he had to bring up this matter himself. Helpless, he could only say, Tang Zheng, about the dragon, do you have anything to tell me? Tang Zheng stared at him. Their eyes met, and he said without hesitation, there's nothing to say. The bureau chief raised his thick eyebrows, as if he didn't expect Tang Zheng to reject him so directly. This almost blocked his next question. But since he took the initiative to come here, it was impossible for him to leave after hearing this answer. Thus, after pondering for a while, he asked, the dragon really exists. That dragon's roar can't be faked. Moreover, the 100-change Star Lord and Yamada no Orochi came for it. Your words don't seem to be convincing. Tang Zheng was still unmoved and said, did anyone see it? No. But that doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. All kinds of evidence have shown that the dragon exists. It's useless for you to deny it. The bureau chief's voice rose a few notches. He seemed to be a little agitated. Tang Zheng was still as calm as an ancient well. Without batting an eyelid, he said, since you already believe in its existence, isn't it superfluous to ask this question again? In this world, only Tang Zheng dared to say that the bureau chief's words were superfluous. The bureau chief wasn't angry. Even if he was, it would be useless. Moreover, he was more than that. Instead, he curled up the corners of his mouth and said, are you worried about something? The dragon is the totem of the Huaxia people. If we really find the dragon, it will be of great help to boost the spirit of our people. I have nothing to worry about. The dragon isn't something that you can control or even control. I think you've misunderstood. We have never meant to control the dragon. We don't even dare to think about it. The bureau chief denied. However, Tang Zheng didn't think so. The words of these superiors couldn't be completely trusted. Moreover, from number one's grand actions and his drive to dig 3 feet into the ground, it could be seen how much importance he attached to the dragon. Moreover, the dragon was a huge temptation. It evoked people's most primitive instincts. For the superiors, the most primitive instinct was to consolidate their position. To many people, the dream of lasting generations was a castle in the air. However, if there was a dragon, then it might really be possible to achieve it. Tang Zheng could imagine how great of a temptation this was. Since you don't mean to do that, then there's even less need to see the dragon. Moreover, if the dragon really appears in the eyes of the world, I'm sure you know better than I do how much panic it will cause. No, you're wrong about that. We are the descendants of the dragon. If the dragon really appears, then our faith will have a true sustenance. This is a good thing and won't cause panic. The bureau chief said solemnly. Regarding this, Tang Zheng was skeptical. The other party wanted to use all kinds of seemingly high-sounding reasons to convince Tang Zheng. Unfortunately, Tang Zheng didn't buy it. Seeing that Tang Zheng was stubborn, the bureau chief frowned even more. He gradually looked at Tang Zheng aggressively and said, you want to monopolize the dragon? Tang Zheng thought for a while and decided to admit it openly. Otherwise, the other party would definitely keep pestering him. I already monopolized it. What? The bureau chief turned pale with fright and stood up with a whoosh. He looked down at Tang Zheng with a condescending gaze. At this moment, the aura that he tried so hard to hide was finally completely released. However, the aura of a superior was completely ineffective against Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng was still unfazed. He looked into the bureau chief's eyes and said, "You've heard it clearly. Monopolize the dragon? What do you want to do?" The dragon is Hua Xia's spiritual totem. Do you know what this means? The bureau chief questioned. I only know that if it's in my hands, it won't cause a disaster to this world. The bureau chief was skeptical. We are the descendants of the dragon. Why would the appearance of the dragon bring a disaster to us? That's because it was imprisoned by humans back then. That's why it hates humans so much. Do you think it'll be grateful to humans or take revenge after it escapes? The bureau chief was speechless for a moment. Because this was beyond his knowledge. He didn't know that the dragon was imprisoned by humans. He subconsciously thought that the dragon was very close to humans. That was why he was so confident that he could control the dragon and use it for himself. Looking at his changing expression, Tang Zheng's head moved. He suddenly thought of a plan and asked coldly, "Are you related to the Great Lord?" "Yes." "Ah. What did you say?" The bureau chief's mind was completely immersed in the world of the dragon. He didn't expect Tang Zheng to throw this question out of the blue. His subconscious answer immediately exposed the truth. Although he immediately realized that something was wrong and quickly tried to remedy it, it was still too late. Tang Zheng's eyes flashed. This was just a guess in his heart. He didn't expect that he would be able to trick the bureau chief into revealing the truth. At that moment, the shock in his heart could be imagined. The bureau chief was actually related to the Great Lord. Was it him or the government that was related to the Great Lord? How deep was this relationship? No wonder he rejected the idea when he mentioned the Azure Dragon Palace. It turned out that they were together. He had been fooled for so long and had been kept in the dark for so long. A strong sense of vigilance surged in his heart. However, because the other party had a close relationship with the Azure Dragon Palace, he definitely knew a lot about the Azure Dragon Palace. Let's see if we can trick him again. The bureau chief was confused by Tang Zheng's question. Only then did he realize the big problem. He frowned and stared at Tang Zheng. With an unfriendly expression, he said, "Are you tricking me?" Tang Zheng said with a fake smile, "I just don't want to be kept in the dark." Then, have you always been telling the truth? When I asked you about the dragon, you should remember how you answered me, right? The bureau chief asked back. Of course, Tang Zheng remembered. They didn't open up their hearts to each other. They were wary of each other and tried to cheat each other. No one could blame the other because their positions and interests were different. Tang Zheng wasn't a saint. Of course, he wouldn't stand on the moral high ground and criticize anyone. Chapter 9-10. The bureau chief couldn't do anything about Tang Zheng's attitude. If the Azure Dragon Palace found the dragon, he would have nothing to do with it. It was true that he had a close relationship with the Great Lord, but they were just using each other to maintain a fragile alliance. He couldn't command the Great Lord, and the Great Lord couldn't control him. That was why he wanted to rely on Tang Zheng to restrict the Azure Dragon Palace. But now it seemed that Tang Zheng wasn't that easy to control. His strength increased too quickly, and he was too mysterious. Now that the grudge had been formed, he couldn't make Tang Zheng change his mind. He couldn't help but feel a little annoyed. Tang Zheng was too smart. He didn't investigate properly and was tricked into revealing the truth so easily. I will definitely get the dragon. After a long silence, the bureau chief clenched his fists and vowed. Tang Zheng smiled. Go ahead, as long as you have the ability. Tang Zheng was probably the only person who dared to question his ability in this world. He snorted coldly, "If you stir up trouble again in the future, I won't clean up after you anymore." It was obvious that Tang Zheng's actions this time had touched his reverse scale. Both sides were on the verge of breaking off their relationship. Tang Zheng wasn't scared. he said lightly, as you wish. The bureau chief angrily opened the door. Everyone's eyes were immediately attracted. Feeling his anger, everyone's heart tightened. A thought appeared in their minds: the negotiation had failed. Number 1 was also shocked. The bureau chief was courteous and personally came to visit, but Tang Jing didn't buy it. This was too daring. Under everyone's gazes, the bureau chief and Number 1 hurriedly left. The others quickly surrounded Tang Jing and asked him questions. Even Lan Yu and Mu Hongyan walked out of the kitchen and looked at him nervously. Civilians don't fight with officials, especially such a high-ranking official. No one knew what would happen in the future. Tang Jing didn't explain much, but he wasn't so pessimistic. In the past, the big families didn't buy into the government's words and even forced them, but the government couldn't do anything. It was only because they were too powerful that the government didn't dare to act rashly. Now that Tang Jing's strength had surpassed his, how could he be afraid of anyone? Tang Jing waved his hand and said calmly, "Everyone, don't worry. It's not as serious as you think. We're not soft persimmons that can be easily bullied. It's necessary to express our position at the right time. Officials are all two-faced and two-faced. Now that we have so many properties, will he set us up?" Mu Hongyan said worriedly. This was the area she was in charge of, so she was naturally more concerned about it. She didn't want to create unnecessary trouble. Since Sister Mu is worried, then let's go to Sweden immediately and make our plate bigger so that he won't dare to act rashly. Tang Jing had started to set foot in his overseas business. When the time came, his domestic and overseas businesses would complement each other and complement each other. Naturally, his influence would be incomparable. No matter who it was that wanted to stir up trouble, they would have to think twice first. Speaking of which, he was still looking forward to Rockefeller's properties. After all, it was a big family with hundreds of years of history. It had a much deeper foundation than the few big families in the capital. Sister Mu nodded in agreement. "Then we'll leave as soon as possible." And said excitedly, "That's great. I'll arrange it immediately." She ran into her room to make a call. "It's not safe overseas either. You must be careful." Fang Shishir looked at Tang Jing affectionately and reminded him. The others knew that he was going to do something important, so they didn't say that they wanted to follow him. They just kept reminding him. But the only regret was that they couldn't go to Azure Dragon Palace for the time being. Also, the bureau chief must have seen Li Xiaotian in the crowd just now. The news that Li Xiaotian was still alive would probably spread. Tang Jing couldn't guess what the Lord would think, but he wasn't afraid. With the Empyrean fairy at home, it shouldn't be a big problem. The bureau chief left in a huff. Sitting in the Hongqi car, the atmosphere was a little tense. Number 1 sat in the front seat and could clearly feel the anger he was suppressing. "Bureau chief, since Tang Jing doesn't know what's good for him, we don't have to be angry with him," Number 1 advised carefully. "What do you know?" the bureau chief said in a low voice. "I'm just a martial artist. Indeed, I don't know about national affairs. But Tang Jing is different now. He's really too strong." Before Number 1 could continue, he was interrupted by the bureau chief. "What do you think I'm going to do to him?" Isn't that so?" Number 1 was stunned. It seemed that his worries were unnecessary. He let out a sigh of relief. "We can't touch Tang Jing for now, but we can't let him continue to develop like this. Or else, he will become a big problem one day," the bureau chief said. "Then what should we do?" "Tell Yi Xuanji to come and see me." Yes. If the bureau chief wanted to see Yi Xuanji, he would definitely not personally visit him. This was the difference in strength between Yi Xuanji and Tang Jing. When Yi Xuanji heard the summons, he had a stomach full of questions, but he did not dare to delay and rushed to the courtyard house. The Ya family was no longer the Ya family of the past. Although the bureau chief had ordered to support the Ya family a while ago, it was still a short period of time after all, and the results had not been seen yet. Yi Xuanji was grateful for the bureau chief's support, but he was well aware that the other party wanted to help him fight against Tang Zheng and Yen Padian. Could it be because of this again? But didn't Tang Zheng turn the tide yesterday? Logically speaking, his relationship with the bureau chief should be further improved. Yi Xuanji could not figure out the mystery behind it. Under the lead of number 1, he arrived in front of the bureau chief. "Elder Yi, you're here. Please take a seat." The bureau chief took the initiative to stand up and welcome him. Yi Xuanji was flattered, but his expression did not change in the slightest. He sat down quietly and said, "Bureau chief, what can I do for you to summon this old one? Elder Yi is a famous tea expert. How about you taste my Wui Mountain de Hong Pao first?" The bureau chief was not in a hurry to reveal the answer, but said neither too fast nor too slow. Yi Xuanji did not ask any more questions. He picked up the teacup, took a sip, and praised, "Good tea, this should be the tea from the old tea trees in Wui Mountain, right?" "Yes, there are only a few old tea trees left. Every year, there is only this little bit. If Elder Yi likes it, then bring a share back," the bureau chief said generously. This was a tribute, and ordinary people could not drink it at all. Yi Xuanji was a person who loved tea, so he accepted it respectfully. However, he was even more uncertain in his heart. If he gave a sweet date before talking about serious matters, then the following matter would not be a small matter. "Elder Yi, I heard that the matters of the Ye family are now being taken care of by your grandson, Yiku?" the bureau chief asked. "Yes, after all, time waits for no man. This old one is already old, so it is better to leave it to the younger generation. I will enjoy a life of leisure. Elder Yi is too modest. You are old but vigorous. How many young people cannot compare to you? How can you just go into seclusion like this? The Ye family has reached great heights and should go further. How can this not be done without an old helmsman like you at the helm?" Yi Xuanji's heart moved. He said thoughtfully, "Now that the situation in the capital has changed greatly, the Ye family is struggling to survive in the cracks. How can they go further? It is good to maintain the status quo. Elder Ye's thinking is wrong. The Ye family is a century-old family. Ups and downs are common. How can they be frightened by the difficulties in front of them? In my opinion, the Ye family has great potential." The bureau chief looked straight at Yi Xuanji and said. Yi Xuanji also looked up. Their eyes met and asked, "Bureau chief, do you really think so?" "Of course." The bureau chief nodded. Yi Xuanji became excited, but the difficulties that the Ye family is facing are not small. If there are difficulties, then overcome them. To Elder Yi, difficulties are only motivation to move forward. As long as Elder Yi has the heart, nothing will be a problem. This was a direct reassurance for him. It was much more powerful than the secret support in the past. This was support on the surface, and also a promise. With this promise, even if the Ye family was in the cracks between the Tang Zheng and the Yen family, they could still find a ray of hope and grow strong. Although Yi Xuanji looked disheartened on the surface, and looked like he was going into seclusion, the fire in his heart was not extinguished. He wanted to lead the Ye family to greater heights and further. Now that the bureau chief had said this, the fire in his heart shot up. His thoughts were also active. Since the bureau chief has orders, the Ye family will naturally go through fire and water. If it was the Ye family of the past, Yi Xuanji would definitely not say this. He would even pretend to be reserved. But now, he would be an idiot if he still pretended to be reserved. The bureau chief nodded happily. The older the ginger, the spicier, the wiser. Talking to smart people is really easy. Elder Yi, please rest assured. I will fully support the Ye family. I will definitely restore the glory of the Ye family of the past. No, surpass the glory of the past and let the Ye family become the leader of the capital. The bureau chief said firmly. This old man thanks you. Yi Xuanji quickly got up and slightly cupped his hands. Yi Xuanji left with a heart full of pride. Although he did not ask what happened between the bureau chief and Tang Zheng, he could still guess a thing or two. Tang Zheng was young and full of vigor. He was completely out of the bureau chief's control. He was afraid that there was a conflict between the two, which gave the Ye family an opportunity to take advantage of. Yi Xuanji was an experienced person. He knew the situation in the country very well. With the support of the government, the Ye family's development momentum would increase by leaps and bounds. But when he thought of Tang Zheng, he couldn't help but feel a little guilty. He knew more about Tang Zheng than ordinary people. Especially when Tang Zheng saved his life in the world of spirits and souls, it made him even more afraid of Tang Zheng's supernatural means. But things were unpredictable. He had already walked to the opposite side of Tang Zheng. If he wavered, it would be bad. Since the bureau chief supported him to compete with Tang Zheng, then let's have a good fight. The bureau chief looked out of the door. The sun shone down from the sky and passed through the gaps between the leaves, sprinkling mottled spots of light. Number 1, in Tang Zheng's residence, did you notice one of the girls? There were too many girls in the Tang family. Even if Number 1 had a firm mind, he was still dazzled. He asked blankly, which one is the bureau chief talking about? Is Li Xiaotian among them? The bureau chief had only seen Li Xiaotian's photo. Moreover, there was a rumor that Li Xiaotian was dead some time ago, so he felt a little strange. Chapter 9-11. After Number 1 confirmed Li Xiaotian's identity, both he and the bureau chief had strange expressions on their faces. Li Xiaotian and Tang Zheng were sworn enemies. Why would he appear next to him and be so docile? Also, what was with the news of his death? Could it be a fake death to confuse people? The bureau chief suddenly thought of a possibility and turned pale with fright. Could it be that the Azure Dragon Palace and Tang Zheng have secretly joined forces? The so-called fight to the death situation was all done on purpose to deceive me? He was startled by the thought. But in an instant, he thought of Tang Zheng's previous attitude. This attitude showed that Tang Zheng and the Azure Dragon Palace were still incompatible like fire and water. He was completely confused. He would never have thought that Li Xiaotian had lost his memory. Should I question the Lord in person? He was caught in a dilemma. After hesitating for a while, he decided to suppress this discovery in his heart for the time being. Whether they are acting or have other plans, I'd better wait and see. Let them think that I haven't found out anything fishy about them. Because of this concern, the news that Li Xiaotian was still alive was concealed and not sent back to the Azure Dragon Palace. This was beyond Tang Zheng's expectations. And ticked. The princess's arrangement was very fast. Before Tang Zheng could go to the imperial city to ask the five-clawed golden dragon about the Langya pavilion and the Tai Chi two-forms sword technique, she had already settled everything. Even Qi Yu and the inner demons could not recognize this sword technique. It was probably not simple. Tian Chanzi and the Empyrean fairy might not know either. Therefore, he did not ask them at all. The weather was clear and there were no clouds in the sky. Tang Zheng, Mu Hongyan, Tian Chanzi, and Princess and boarded the special plane to Sweden. Other than the flight attendants, they were the only passengers on the Gulfstream commercial airliner. And took on the role of a guide and introduced the culture and customs of her country to Tian Chanzi. Mu Hongyan inadvertently glanced at Tang Zheng and found that he was facing the window, seemingly admiring the scenery in the sky. Ever since the last time the two of them almost had sex, the two of them had not had any intimate contact. This was because Tang Zheng was too busy during this period of time. Moreover, they were under the watchful eyes of others, so the two of them did not have the guts to do so. Tang Zheng turned his head and coincidentally met Mu Hongyan's eyes. Mu Hongyan quickly averted her gaze, her ears turning red. This time, it was inevitable that the two of them would have a chance to be alone together. He wondered if something would happen. When she thought of this, her heart couldn't help but beat wildly. Ever since she had that thought, she felt more and more that Tang Zheng was full of charm that she couldn't resist. There were several times when Tang Zheng appeared in her dreams. When she woke up, she found that the sheets were wet, making her feel ashamed. Tang Zheng didn't think too much about it. He was thinking about the problems he would encounter when he went abroad. The plane smoothly landed on the runway. A motorcade was already waiting there. The red carpet was laid out all the way to the airport's gangway. Tang Zheng and the others walked out of the cabin door and saw two familiar people, the head butler of the royal family, Bruce, and the princess's bodyguard, Baser. The two people's eyes focused on the princess at the same time. They politely bowed and saluted. "Welcome back to the country." "Welcome all the guests." Princess Anne smiled and said, "Bruce, don't be so reserved. They are very easy to talk to." "Princess, etiquette cannot be abolished," Bruce solemnly said. Princess Anne secretly stuck out her tongue and didn't try to persuade him anymore. After all, she was a 19-year-old girl. When she stepped on her homeland, she was in high spirits. She took a deep breath and sighed, "Homeland is so good." Bruce added courteously, "Distinguished guests, please get in the carriage." The few people entered the two luxury cars. Princess Anne accompanied Tian Chanzi in one car. Tang Zheng and Mu Hongyan entered the car behind. The luxury car with the Swedish flag at the front drove out of the airport with the police car opening the way. Tang Zheng and Mu Hongyan both stepped on this country for the second time. They were not unfamiliar with it. They turned their heads to look at the scenery outside the window for a while. Then, they coincidentally withdrew their gazes. The two people's eyes inadvertently intertwined. Tang Zheng's head moved, but he didn't move away. Mu Hongyan's heart was in a panic. She quickly turned her head, trying to resolve the subtle awkwardness. Suddenly, her hand was tightly gripped by a large hand. Her breathing immediately quickened as her face blushed all the way to her ears. She was so charming and beautiful that she couldn't compare to anyone else. She tried to struggle, but to no avail. She could only let Tang Zheng hold her hand. As if holding a soft jade in the palm of his hand, Tang Zheng's heart rippled. His fingers gently slid in her palm. The slightly numb and itchy feeling made her heart feel like a cat was scratching it. It was very subtle. She glared at Tang Zheng, as if she wanted him to be more honest. However, Tang Zheng's mouth hooked up into a playful smile. His fingertips condensed a trace of true energy, which wandered in her palm. Her whole body trembled. Her body became limp and numb. She weakly leaned against the back of the seat and glared at him with hidden bitterness. This enemy, there was a driver in front, but he dared to be so brazen. He really wanted to die. He made a fool of himself. Her heart was burning. How could Tang Zheng not be? Seeing her breath like an orchid, he couldn't wait to continue what he had not finished last time. Dong! Tang Zheng's phone fell under the car. Tang Zheng bent down to pick it up. His body pressed against her thigh. Mu Hongyan was embarrassed and anxious. She knew that he must have done it on purpose. His face was almost pressed against her thin black silk stockings. Her skin could clearly feel the heat of his breath. Her heart almost jumped out of her throat, but she couldn't have too big of a reaction. Otherwise, if the driver in front saw it, what would he think? Tang Zheng picked up the phone, but was not in a hurry to get up. He gently sniffed the fragrance coming from her body. The perfume on her body smelled very good. It was not too strong or too light. It was just right. Bo. Tang Zheng's lips gently kissed the back of her hand. She felt as if she had been electrocuted. Her whole body trembled. It was as if she had turned into a pool of water. Her eyes could even drip water. Moreover, she felt that her skirt was wet. She couldn't wait to find a hole to hide in. This enemy really wanted to kill her. Tang Zheng stopped. In order to avoid arousing the driver's suspicion, he unhurriedly sat up straight and said in a voice that only the two of them could hear, "Sister Mu, you seem to be very sensitive." Mu Hongyan no longer had any strength in her body. She could only look at him helplessly. After a while, she said, "Stop messing around. Otherwise, when we get off the car later, I will make a fool of myself." Tang Jing smiled mischievously, then begged me. Mu Hongyan looked at him pitifully. Finally, she helplessly said, I beg you. If you want to beg someone, you should at least give me a gift. Tang Jing did not give up. What gift do you want? Sister Mu, you are the best gift. This sentence ruthlessly hit the softest part of her heart. Her heartstrings trembled and her breathing quickened. She could not say another word. Looking at her shy appearance, Tang Zheng had an unprecedented sense of satisfaction. In front of other women, he would say beautiful words of love, but he would not tease her so unscrupulously. But looking at her shy appearance, he could not help but have the urge to tease her. Tang Zheng did not push his luck. He really did not do anything out of line. Seeing him behave, Mu Hongyan finally breathed a sigh of relief. But she also felt an inexplicable sense of loss. The motorcade finally arrived in front of the magnificent palace. The royal family had actually prepared a grand welcoming ceremony. However, these people were all calm and did not have the slightest bit of stage fright. Mu Hongyan had already calmed down. She smiled sweetly and looked like a charming lady. She attracted the attention of countless people. She was even comparable to Princess Anne. Westerners prefer this kind of mature beauty. Princess Anne was beautiful, but in the end, she was too immature. Of course, Tang Zheng and Tian Chanzi also received a lot of attention. They looked at the welcoming team expressionlessly. These people were all Swedish nobles and dignitaries. These people basically did not know why the king would receive them with such a high standard of etiquette. They were very confused and kept guessing. No one would think that this was related to Nicholas's death, and no one would think that Nicholas had died in the hands of this young man in front of them. The king personally received them, making them in the limelight for a while. There were even some people in the crowd who recognized Tang Zheng as the mysterious knight of Princess Annie who was once the talk of the town. Princess Annie was no longer a child. Could it be that Princess Annie and the knight were about to have a happy ending? Why did the king welcome her with such fanfare? Could it be that Princess Annie and the knight were about to have a happy ending? Marriage? Many people had this idea in their minds. They were very shocked. Was Princess Anne really going to marry a Huaxia? The power of rumors and slanders was great, and by the time the welcoming ceremony was over, the rumors and slanders had quietly changed. Princess Annie and Tang Zheng were about to hold their wedding ceremony. The protagonist of this rumor had no idea that he had already entered the palace and was arranged to stay there. Brosnan told them that there would be a welcome dinner in the evening. They were tired from the journey and could take a rest first. Tang Zheng found that he was living in the same room as last time. The room next door was Fang Shishi's room last time. There, the two of them secretly did a lot of things. Even the royal family did not know about it. However, this time it was Mu Hongyan next door. He had an idea in his mind. He would wait until it was dark and then turn over to see what would happen. This was a rare opportunity for the two of them to be alone. In the car, they had already ignited the fire in each other's hearts. If they did not do something at night, Tang Zheng doubted whether his pure yang power could be controlled. The rumors spread very quickly. They had already reached the ears of the king and queen. The two of them looked at each other in surprise. The queen could not help but ask, "Is Anne really in love with Tang Zheng?" The king also shook his head in confusion. "I don't know. Brosnan knows more about these things. I'll summon him in to ask." After a while, Brosnan came in. When he heard the question, he hesitated for a long time and said, "When they were in Huaxia, Her Royal Highness lived in Tang Zheng's house." "What? Why didn't you tell me this before?" The king was shocked. The queen's face also stiffened. Chapter 9:12. Faced with the king's questioning, Bruce quickly explained, "There are other people living in Tang Zheng's house, not just the two of them. Moreover, Her Royal Highness guaranteed that there is absolutely no inappropriate relationship with Tang Zheng, so I did not report to your majesty. This is a dereliction of duty." Humph, it must be, and who told you not to tell us, right? The king knew his daughter very well and asked a question that hit the nail on the head. Bruce smiled and did not say anything, which could be considered as a tacit agreement. The queen asked doubtfully, "You said that there are other people living in Tang Zheng's house?" "Yes, the Miss Mu you saw today is living in his house, and there are some others." "Why are there so many people living in his house?" "Maybe they are all good friends living together so they can take care of each other." Bruce was not too clear about the relationship between Tang Zheng and the others, so he speculated. Seeing that nothing really happened between the two, the king and queen were relieved, but they still sternly warned, "This matter must not be known to outsiders, understand?" "Understood." "This time, and return to the country and will not go to Huaxia again. Since the two of them are separated, naturally nothing will happen," the king said. The queen looked at the king in surprise and said, "You want to bring her back? Don't you want her to keep in touch with that group of cultivators?" The king smiled mysteriously. This time, even Tian Chanzi was invited. "I naturally have a way to improve my relationship with the cultivators. There is no need for and to appear in public." The queen was thoughtful, but when she thought of the rumors, she felt a headache. "I don't know who spread these rumors. It's really not something a gentleman should do. The welcome banquet and ball in the evening will eliminate this misunderstanding. We can't let the rumors continue to ferment." The king was full of confidence. The banquet was held in a huge banquet hall, and many elites gathered together. Tang Zheng, Mu Hongyan, and Tian Chanzi were specially arranged to be near the king and queen, which showed their status. When everyone saw this scene, they felt that the rumors were not false. The king stood up and said, "Guests, friends, ladies and gentlemen, we are all gathered here today to give a grand welcome to our distinguished guests from the East. Please allow me to introduce our three distinguished guests again. This is Anne's master, Tian Chanzi. This is the young and promising Mr. Tang Zheng. This is the beautiful Ms. Mu Hongyan. Their company will reach strategic cooperation with our country. We will develop together in the fields of finance, technology, service, and so on. It will be mutually beneficial." After hearing such a detailed introduction, everyone finally understood that these three people were indeed from a powerful background. However, the doubts in their hearts grew even stronger. Especially Tang Zheng and Mu Hongyan's company, they had never heard of this name before. Why did they suddenly appear and form a cooperation? Princess Anne kept looking at Tang Zheng with a sweet smile. Because the two of them sat across from each other at the dining table, it was easy for their gazes to meet. In other people's eyes, there was a hint of flirting. They suddenly realized that this mysterious knight was able to obtain these cooperation because of Princess Anne. Wasn't this the so-called living off a woman in the East? No matter which country, men who lived off women were always looked down upon. Therefore, many elites cast disdainful gazes at Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng also felt these gazes and couldn't help but feel a little puzzled. He didn't know them, so why were their gazes so unkind? The banquet went smoothly. Compared to the East, the banquets in the West were less lively. They ate politely and were as gentlemanly as they could be. This was a scene that many domestic women dreamed of. It was high-end and classy. Perhaps many women wouldn't have time to eat and would just take photos and post them on their WeChat moments. Tang Zheng only hoped that it would end soon. Finally, in his impatient wait, the banquet came to an end. The king and queen were the first to stand up, and the others also stood up one after another. They filed out and went to another hall next door. The ball had begun. People gathered in twos and threes, and there was more freedom. Tang Zheng had no objection to this arrangement. After all, the host attached great importance to it, and he couldn't refuse the other party's good intentions. On the other hand, the heaven monk was like a fish in water. Although he did not know how to speak foreign languages, he had a good appearance with a sage-like demeanor, which attracted the favor of many noble ladies from other countries. When the music started, Tian Chanzi was pulled to the dance floor by a young woman who was at least 36D. Damn! Tang Zheng's eyes widened. This old hooligan actually made his moves so quickly. The size of the chest was really spectacular. It turned out that he liked this type. "Your Royal Highness, may I invite you to dance?" A handsome blonde man wearing a tuxedo walked over and bowed slightly to Anne. He was incomparably gentlemanly. Princess Anne smiled at him and said, "Alex, I'm sorry. Someone has already invited me for the first dance." After saying that, she stretched out her slender jade hand to Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng was stunned for a moment. What was this for? "My Mr. Knight, could it be that you don't want to invite me to dance?" Princess Anne winked at Tang Zheng and said with a smile, "I don't know how to." Tang Zheng said truthfully. Was this a rejection? Alex was dumbfounded. This brat actually rejected Princess Anne. This was the dream of many people. He couldn't help but feel a little jealous. But then he thought, "You don't know how to, but I do." He eagerly looked at Princess Anne, hoping that Princess Anne would give up on this unromantic guy. But Anne acted as if she didn't see his eyes. She looked at Tang Zheng in surprise and asked, "You don't know how to?" Immediately, she smiled again, like the most beautiful flower in the world blooming. It was as if she had discovered something amazing. This kind of smile from the bottom of her heart made Alex feel very hurt and jealous. Alex was not an ordinary person. He was one of the many suitors of Princess Anne. Moreover, he was also a famous suitor. Ever since Princess Anne turned 15 years old, he launched a fierce pursuit and chose to sail around the world. Part of the reason was that she couldn't stand his pursuit. Alex dared to do this. Of course, he had a background. Otherwise, how could an ordinary citizen dare to pursue a princess so crazily? At most, they would just look from afar and be satisfied. Alex's family was Europe's oldest and largest family, Rothschild. This family was very secretive. Ordinary people simply didn't know about it. They had never even heard of it. But the group of people who stood at the top of the world was like thunder in their ears. This family was involved in various fields and had a decisive influence on Europe. Back then, the Rockefeller family attacked Europe and assassinated the royal families of various countries. This caused panic and lasted for nearly a century. During this period, in addition to the resistance of the royal families of various countries, the biggest resistance force was the Rothschild family. Some people said that the Rothschild family was Europe's last line of defense. If this family fell, then Europe would completely fall. Fortunately, the Rothschild family persevered under the attack of the Rockefeller family's vampires and werewolves. The king had once told Tang Zheng about this period of history. However, he omitted the important Rothschild family. Even the royal families of various European countries didn't mention this family in their history books. This was because the royal families couldn't say that they kept the country and the throne because of this family and not because of their own efforts. This was slapping their own face. No one was willing to do such a stupid thing. The Rothschild family also didn't mind the royal families of various countries erasing their contributions. This family wasn't as popular as the Rockefeller family and frequently appeared in the public eye. They were better at, or rather, liked to lie dormant. If they encountered an enemy, they could take advantage of the situation and give the enemy a fatal blow. Of course, the most talked about were the 12 holy knights of this family. These were the 12 people who played a significant role in the long battle with the Rockefeller family and were conferred the title of Holy Knights. Countless vampires and werewolves died at the hands of the Holy Knights. It could be said that they were the most powerful group of people in Europe. Of course, they were also the most secretive group. They were like ghosts. Very few people knew of their existence. Even the royal families of various countries didn't know where the Holy Knights were today. Moreover, decades had passed since the battle that year. Were the 12 Holy Knights still alive? Even if they were already close to 100 years old. Could they still fight? But no one dared to question this question. I thought you knew everything. Finally, I found something you don't know. This is great. Princess Anne said happily as if she had discovered a new continent. Tang Zheng rolled his eyes speechlessly. What was there to be happy about? I'll teach you if you don't know. It's very simple. You're so smart. You'll learn it quickly. And took the initiative to pull Tang Zheng up and walk to the dance floor. Alex looked at this scene angrily. He invited Anne to dance, but she rejected him without hesitation. This stupid guy didn't know how to dance, but she volunteered to teach him. At that moment, he was completely inferior to Tang Zheng. To be defeated by a guy who lived off a woman was like being slapped hard in the face. He even had the intention to kill someone. Tang Zheng didn't care about this brother's thoughts. Looking at Princess Anne's back, he felt helpless. He couldn't just reject her. After all, she was a princess of a country. Her subjects were all watching. If he rejected her, he was afraid that he would be killed by their eyes. However, when Anne held his hand and walked to the dance floor, they immediately attracted the attention of most people. Princess Anne gave the first one to the mysterious knight. The relationship between the two was even more clear. It seemed that the rumors were true. Alex stood there in a daze. Seeing other people looking at him, he couldn't help but feel a little embarrassed. He turned his eyes and saw Mu Hongyan. His eyes flashed with a touch of surprise, and then he politely invited, "Beautiful Miss Mu, may I invite you to dance?" Mu Hongyan's eyes were fixed on Tang Zheng. Her heart was slightly sour. Hearing Alex's invitation, she refused without hesitation. "Sorry, I'm a little tired. I don't want to dance." She smiled faintly and walked to the side, leaving Alex standing there like a puppet in a daze, his mind in a mess. Chapter 9:13. Alex watched with jealousy as Tang Zheng and Princess Anne danced on the dance floor. Tang Zheng's movements were very rusty and he couldn't even grasp the rhythm. He was obviously a rookie and Princess Anne had been guiding him. If it wasn't for her, he would have already made a fool of himself. This made Alex burn with jealousy. You didn't look for a ready-made dance king but chose this brat. Wasn't this just looking for trouble for yourself? Later, when you make a fool of yourself, you will know how unwise your choice was. Tang Zheng's movements attracted the attention of the others. Their lips curled into a faint smile and they couldn't hide the contempt in their eyes. So this mysterious knight was only so-so. They didn't know why Princess Anne would fancy him. Hiss. Anne lightly sucked in a breath of cold air and her mouth slightly twitched. This was because Tang Zheng's foot stepped on her again. Although Tang Zheng was an expert cultivator, it was inevitable that he would make a beginner's mistake. Looking at the burning gazes of the people around him, he couldn't help but feel a little embarrassed. "It's okay, it will be fine in a while. I believe in you." Anne's lips curled up. She didn't take it to heart and leaned close to his ear, comforting him in a low voice. A burst of fragrance entered his nose, making him feel relaxed and happy. Her body leaned against him, as if they were close, yet not far. It was exceptionally moving. If it was someone else, they would probably be so excited that they would have a nosebleed. Tang Zheng's breathing was steady. Although there were slight ripples in his heart, he didn't show it. "Okay, thank you." Tang Zheng wasn't discouraged. "Since you want to see me make a fool of myself, how can I let you do as you wish?" Tang Zheng's control of his body and rhythm could be said to be at the level of a master. Although he made a fool of himself at the beginning, his learning speed was extremely fast and displayed his high dancing talent. Anne's eyes lit up. "Yes, that's it. You learn quite fast." Tang Zheng smiled. "It's all because you taught me well." "Of course." Anne raised her eyebrows and proudly boasted. Their dance steps began to harmonize. Tang Zheng gradually took the initiative, leading and to perform all kinds of beautiful and difficult moves. Immediately, the two of them became the focus of attention. This was not because of Anne's princess halo, but because of their dance. Just now, many people were silently criticizing Tang Zheng for being a rookie and waiting to see him make a fool of himself. Now, it was as if they had swallowed a fly, choking them speechless. Alex's eyeballs almost fell to the ground. What the F***ck is this called not knowing how to dance? Are you playing with me? He became more and more furious, thinking that Tang Zheng was obviously lying to him just now, pretending to be a pig to eat the tiger. I will turn you into a real pig. He glared at Tang Zheng hatefully. He had seen many of An's suitors, and of course, there was no lack of outstanding ones, but they were all defeated by him and left the scene. He was confident that one day he would be able to carry the beauty home, but halfway through, there was a Qin Yao Jin. No, a mysterious night, and rumors about him with the princess spread like wildfire. He was so angry that his lungs were about to explode. When he heard that princess and went to Huaxia, he wanted to immediately chase after her, but his family did not allow him to set foot in Huaxia, which made him full of anger. What night? That was a name given by ignorant people. They had never seen a real knight, so they could imagine the power of a knight. How could this Tang Jing be compared to the paladin and his family? He was not even worthy to carry her shoes. If Princess Anne's heart was captured by others, Alex might not have such a big reaction, but to be captured by an unknown Easterner, he absolutely could not accept this kind of failure. Looking at the two dancing like a prince and a princess, he clenched his teeth, thinking that the person in the spotlight should be me. He subconsciously clenched his fists, and, I will let you know who is your prince, and who is the toad at the bottom of the well. At the end of the song, Tang Zheng and then finished with a difficult and classic dance, winning warm applause from the audience. This time, it was heartfelt applause. Although many people did not think highly of this pair, there was no dispute about their dance, so to receive this applause, it was well deserved. Dance King. Someone gave a thumbs up, and then the others followed. The title of Dance King instantly fell on the rookie Tang Zheng's head. Alex's eyes turned red. This should have been his title, but it was taken away by this brat. How hateful. The two bowed and left the dance floor, but An was still holding Tang Zheng's hand tightly, making others envious. She looked at him with a smile, her eyes full of affection, and a faint charming smile appeared on her mouth. You danced so well. This is the happiest and most satisfying dance I have ever danced. You flatter me. Tang Zheng did not care, his eyes searching for Mu Hongyan's figure in the crowd. He was dancing happily here, so he did not want her to have any ideas. I'm going to the bathroom. Tang Zheng did not see Mu Hongyan, his heart moved, and left, leaving and looking at his back with burning eyes. The queen came over, looking at her daughter's burning eyes, she could not help but have a headache. Originally, she wanted to take this opportunity to clarify the relationship between the two, but the more she tried, the worse it became. In the eyes of others, the two seemed to be more and more in that direction. The queen just heard a few people whispering that the two were a good match. Anne. Mother. And intimately took the queen's arm. Did I dance well? The queen lovingly patted her hand and said, Of course you did well. Hee, Tang Zheng is so good, you don't know that this is his first time dancing. Is it really his first time? The queen's eyes opened wide in surprise. She was like everyone else, originally thinking that the awkwardness at the beginning was deliberately created by the two, but she did not expect that Tang Zheng was really a rookie. Of course, he is good, right? And showed off. The queen did not answer, falling into deep worry. The more outstanding Tang Zheng was, the faster An would fall, which was not a good thing. At this time, Alex came over and persistently sent an invitation to Anne. Anne faintly smiled and tactfully declined, I'm sorry, I'm tired, I need to rest for a while. Another refusal. Alex angrily roared in his heart, the wind messed up, and his hatred for Tang Zheng increased. Without a doubt, all of this was because of that brat. In the past, Anne was not so cold to him. Seeing Alex return in disappointment, the queen worriedly said, Anne, Alex has pursued you for so long, why are you becoming colder and colder to him? I don't like him, I'm tired of him chasing me. Anne pouted and unhappily said. Alex is actually very outstanding, you need to calm down and understand him better. The queen advised. Anne rolled her eyes and coquettishly said, Mother, how can he be as outstanding as Tang Zheng? he is only relying on his family, not his own ability. Family is also a kind of resource, an advantage. There is nothing bad about it. In any case, I don't like the Rothschild family. Since you know that he is a member of the Rothschild family, you shouldn't be so cold to him. So what if he is from the Rothschild family? I don't like him, I just don't like him. And stubbornly turned her head and coldly snorted. The queen was helpless and could only sigh in her heart. Many royal families in Europe had ideas about the Rothschild family, wanting to further their relationship with them. And had this opportunity, but she refused it. She really didn't know whether to say it was lucky or unlucky. Tang Zheng left to pee and finally found Mu Hongyan on a balcony. She was foolishly looking at the night sky. The night wind blew her long skirt and elegant black hair. The night sky was cloudless and filled with stars. It had a kind of intoxicating beauty. Mu Hongyan heard footsteps and turned around, looking at Tang Zheng in surprise. Why are you here? Aren't you going to dance with Anne? What, are you jealous? The corner of Tang Zheng's mouth hooked up as he teased. Why would I be jealous? Mu Hongyan pretended to smile lightly. The night wind blew and she subconsciously hugged her arms. Tang Zheng took off his coat and put it on her. Her heart warmed and she did not refuse, turning to look at the night sky again. The night sky here is really beautiful. There is too much fog in the capital. It is hard to see this kind of night sky. Mu Hongyan said. Tang Zheng naturally hugged her from behind and said, it won't be long before the night sky in the capital also becomes beautiful. The tree of life was transforming the world's spiritual energy. As long as the spiritual energy was rich, the air would become better. Don't be like this, we will be seen. Mu Hongyan's body tensed up, her cheeks flushed red as she hurriedly refused, trying to break free from Tang Zheng's embrace. Tang Zheng allowed her to struggle, but he did not let go, not allowing her to refute as he said, don't move, otherwise if other people are attracted, I won't be responsible. Mu Hongyan bitterly looked up at him and faintly said, you're bullying me. How am I bullying you? How could I bear to? The night wind is so strong, I was afraid that you would catch a cold, so I hugged you to give you warmth. Although she knew that these were empty words, her heart could not help softening as a warm current flowed through her. She gave up struggling and allowed him to intimately hug her. With the night wind blowing, the two of them did not say a single word, but it felt like their hearts were tightly pressed together. An unprecedented sense of security enveloped her heart as her body softened. It was like she was soaking in a hot spring, relaxing her entire body. Everyone is talking about you and Princess Anne, what do you think? Mu Hongyan suddenly asked. What should I think? Tang Zheng asked back. She is the princess that everyone has their eyes on, with so many people drooling over her. Could it be that you're not moved at all? I'm not moved. Compared to her, you are the one who moves me. Tang Zheng moved close to her ear and gently said. You're not ashamed. Mu Hongyan glared at him, but her heart was filled with happiness. No matter what kind of woman they were, they all liked to hear words of love, and she was no exception. These are my heartfelt words, how could I be ashamed? Tang Zheng lowered his head and hugged her head, raising her neck. She knew what was coming and felt a bit of anticipation, but also a bit embarrassed. There was only a door between them and the others, so what if they were seen? But before she could think about it, that gentleness had already covered her red lips. With an explosion in her mind, she did not think about anything else as she immersed herself in this gentleness. Chapter 9:14. Alex looked at the scene outside the door in disbelief. He staggered and almost fell flat on his face. He rubbed his eyes to make sure that he was not seeing things. Tang Zheng was actually kissing that charming woman. He was so shocked that his jaw dropped to the ground. This brat actually dared to have a foot on two boats and deceive the princess. He was so angry that he was ready to teach these two a lesson and let and see his true colors. But on second thought, he retracted his foot, and a meaningful smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. To catch a thief, catch the evidence, catch an adulterer, catch a couple. If it was just based on my empty words, and might not believe me. Instead, she might think that I am trying to sow discord. Humph, I will go find her and let her see it with her own eyes. This brat will have no way to quibble. Thinking of this, he was so excited that he quickly left quietly. Alex found Anne and told her his discovery loudly and bluntly, which naturally attracted other people's attention. Anne, I will let you see this person's true colors. He actually dared to fool around with other women behind your back. They are on the balcony. You will understand my good intentions with just one look. When everyone heard that Princess Anne's mysterious knight dared to have such a daring rendezvous with his lover on the balcony, they could not help but be shocked. The flames of gossip burned in their hearts. This was a good show. How could they miss it? The king and queen looked at each other. Their eyes flashed with deep worry. If this was true, then it would be a scandal for the royal family. And had a calm expression. Tang Jing already had a girlfriend. Even if something really happened between him and someone, she would not be surprised. However, Alex actually mentioned Tang Zheng and Mu Hongyan. This was something that she did not expect, so she wanted to see what was going on. And, look! Alex pointed to the balcony as if he was presenting a treasure and shouted himself hoarse, look at how shameless they are. How can this kind of person be worthy of you? This kind of shameless person should be chased out of the holy palace. Alex's accusation was powerful and everyone looked towards the balcony. Ah! A woman's scream rang out. Alex was overjoyed and said even more excitedly, catch them in the act. Let's see how this adulterous couple will quibble this time. Everyone looked at the scene on the balcony with a strange expression. They looked at Alex meaningfully. Alex felt uncomfortable being stared at by everyone. He subconsciously turned his head to look. Immediately, his mouth opened wide. He stared at the two people on the balcony in disbelief and roared, why are you guys here? Isn't it Tang Zheng? The two people on the balcony were a well-known couple. They were shocked and at a loss, but they immediately calmed down. It wasn't like they were caught red-handed. What was there to be afraid of? However, their expressions became extremely gloomy as they glared at Alex and asked angrily, Alex, what is the meaning of this? Alex was stunned. He never thought that things would turn out like this. For a moment, he was at a loss. He muttered to himself, impossible. It was clearly them. How did it become you guys? The two of them had coincidentally left when Tang Zheng and Mu Hongyan left, and then secretly came here to kiss each other. However, they didn't expect that this romantic act would be destroyed by Alex's deranged actions. And coldly looked at Alex and angrily said, a true gentleman should not do this kind of nonsense. I want you to apologize to Tang Zheng. Alex quickly shook his head, no, it's not like that. I clearly saw Tang Zheng. How could it be them? What do you mean? The evidence is right in front of you. Do you still want to quibble? If you don't apologize, then don't expect me to say a word to you in the future. Princess Anne resolutely said. Alex was both angry and confused. What the F***K was going on? He was sure that he did not see wrong. However, he did not know that Tang Zheng's cultivation was shocking. If he dared to do this kind of thing on the balcony, then he naturally had confidence. When Alex walked past the door, Tang Zheng noticed him but did not say anything. Then he pulled Mu Hongyan into the ballroom. Mu Hongyan's heart almost jumped out of her throat. Her body was weak and her cheeks were red as if she was drunk. She hurriedly hid in the bathroom to calm herself down and touch up her makeup. Tang Zheng, on the other hand, was a quiet pretty boy in a corner, watching with interest as Alex brought a large group of people to catch the adulterers. Everyone looked at this scene and secretly shook their heads. Alex must be dizzy. He actually used such a clumsy method to sow discord. This time he was asking for trouble. The king and queen simultaneously let out a sigh of relief. It was fortunate that the royal family did not make a fool of themselves. Immediately, everyone looked at Alex with unfriendly expressions. Alex was riding a tiger and could not back down. However, he still stubbornly said, I definitely did not see wrong. And gave a cold snort and turned around to leave without saying a word. And, don't go. Listen to my explanation. Alex loudly shouted. And did not turn her head and said, unless you apologize to Tang Zheng, don't expect me to forgive you. And just happened to see Tang Zheng in the corner. She immediately walked over to him and angrily said, Tang Zheng, Alex has sinister intentions. Don't listen to his nonsense. Tang Zheng smiled and looked at Alex without saying a word. His heart panicked from being looked at and he became even angrier. He loudly shouted, I clearly saw you. Tang Zheng indifferently asked, and the result? In the end. Alex stuttered, but he couldn't say anything. The result was seen by everyone. I don't need to say more. Tang Zheng said with a smile. Yes, the result was that he deliberately tried to drive a wedge between us. This kind of person is too hateful. And chimed in. Alex was at a loss for words. He pointed at Tang Zheng. His cheeks were red as he angrily said, I will make you regret what you did today. This is Europe, not your backward Huaxia. Tang Zheng's face darkened and said, arrogant. A frog at the bottom of a well. Even today, you dare to say that my great Huaxia is backward. Although there were many problems in the country, there was no doubt that this country was becoming stronger and stronger. At the very least, it was not backward. Of course, many people in the West still brought the Huaxia from 100 years ago into the current Huaxia. These people were ignorant. They were the real frogs at the bottom of a well. Tang Zheng's words were powerful and a formless aura enveloped Alex's body. Alex was shocked and sat on the ground. He actually had an illusion that Tang Zheng was like a mountain that was difficult to look up at. The pressure made his heart feel as if it was about to stop beating. This was the result of Tang Zheng's dragon's might erupting. Seeing Alex's battered and exhausted appearance, the crowd burst into laughter. Alex's cheeks were red. He angrily climbed up and angrily said, I will definitely make you regret what you did today. After he finished speaking, he pushed away the crowd and ran away in a sorry state like a defeated general. Seeing this, and hurriedly comforted, Tang Zheng, don't listen to his nonsense. With me here, no one will dare to hurt you. Do you think he can hurt me? Tang Zheng faintly smiled. And was slightly startled, it seems that I was thinking too much. Seeing this scene, the king couldn't help but feel a headache. Alex wasn't an ordinary noble. He represented the Rothschild family. It wasn't a wise decision to become enemies with him. The ball didn't last long before it dispersed. The king called out to Tang Zheng and the two of them went to the study together. Bruce gently closed the door and retreated outside, quietly waiting for the summons. The king looked at Tang Zheng with a serious expression and said, You made Alex look bad tonight. I'm afraid he will hold a grudge. Tang Zheng didn't mind and said, Is your Majesty worried about my safety? There is no need. I know that you are quite capable and are a cultivator. However, there are also very powerful existences in Europe. They might not be weaker than you cultivators. The king muttered. Tang Zheng's heart moved and asked, Could it be that there are still remnants of vampires and werewolves in Europe? Those remnants are nothing to worry about. I'm talking about another group of people. Oh. Tang Zheng's thick eyebrows rose. This was new information, I'd like to hear the details. The king originally didn't want to tell Tang Zheng about the Rothschild family. After all, the royal family played a dishonorable role in it back then. However, now that things had developed to this point, if he didn't give Tang Zheng some pointers, he would be young and impetuous. In the end, he would cause a huge mess and it wouldn't be easy to clean up. Although he trusted Tang Zheng's strength, this was Europe after all. Europe was more ancient than the Atlantic Empire. The various powers here were complicated and maintained a fragile balance. If he wasn't careful, he would ignite a powder keg and break this balance. That would be a huge problem. In addition to the royal families on the surface, there is actually a large power in Europe, the Rothschild family. This is an old family that can stand shoulder to shoulder with the Rockefeller family. The king didn't hide anything and told Tang Zheng about the past, letting him know the power of the Rothschild family. The 12 paladins repelled the Rockefeller family together. This was a heroic feat. Although decades have passed, some people still doubt whether the 12 paladins are still alive and whether they still have the strength they had in the past. However, in my judgment, I'm afraid that the 12 paladins are still alive. Therefore, you can imagine the power of the Rothschild family, and Alex is a member of this family. Tang Zheng suddenly realized why the old king was so serious. It turned out that there was such a large power hidden in Europe. You also know that Nicholas died in my hands. Do you think I would still be afraid of the 12 paladins? Tang Zheng didn't think much of it. These Westerners often like to boast, but compared to the practitioners of Hua Xia, they were still lacking. The Rockefeller family was the best proof. Seeing that Tang Zheng didn't think much of it, the king became anxious and hurriedly said, "There is a saying in Hua Xia that an arrogant army is bound to lose." I think this saying is very classic. Although Nicholas lost in your hands, Rothschild is not Nicholas. You can't generalize, so it's better to be careful. The king seemed to have unlimited power these years, but in fact, he had always been cautious. So when he saw Tang Zheng's attitude, he was secretly anxious for him. Chapter 9:15. Although the king's words were very serious, Tang Zheng disagreed and said, "I don't have a direct conflict of interest with the Rothschild family. If they want to fight me to the death just because of Alex, then this family wouldn't have been able to stand for so many years without falling." Big families were very cautious. If they made a big fuss just because of one person's jealousy, then it would be making a big fuss out of nothing. Besides, didn't the Rothschild family always pay attention to keeping a low profile? That was even more unlikely. After listening to Tang Zheng's explanation, the king pondered for a while and had to admit that what he said was true. He nodded and said, "Your analysis is very reasonable. It seems that I was too concerned, but in any case, it's better to be careful. Thank you for your reminder, Your Majesty." Tang Zheng was not a person who was afraid of trouble, and of course, he was not a person who liked to stir up trouble. As long as the Rothschild family did not provoke him, then he would naturally not pay attention to them. The Rockefeller family has a lot of property in Europe. I have already arranged it for you. You can act tomorrow. Bruce will accompany you all the way, the king said. Thank you, Your Majesty. Madame Mu is fully responsible for this matter. She is more proficient in business than I am. The king said hesitantly, "This is a huge fortune." Tang Zheng knew what he was thinking and waved his hand. "Your Majesty, I chose her because I believe in her." The king was slightly startled. He did not expect Tang Zheng to trust Mu Hongyan so much. He did not say anything more and nodded. "Then it's up to you." Tang Zheng left the study. Tian Chanzi came out of nowhere and looked at him with a meaningful smile. Tang Zheng was baffled and said, "Tian Chanzi, why are you smiling so lowly? Boy, you are slandering me. I am so sage-like. How could I have anything to do with that word?" Tian Chanzi refuted righteously. Tang Zheng curled his lips and said, "Don't flatter yourself. I saw that you were very coquettish today. You seem to be having a lot of fun dancing with others." Tang Zheng gestured in front of his chest. Tian Chanzi immediately thought of the woman with large breasts, but he retorted seriously, "Nonsense, this is communication, understand?" Tang Zheng chuckled. "I understand. You don't have to explain. The more you explain, the worse it gets. You still have the nerve to talk about me? Don't think I don't know what you did. That Alex didn't frame you, right?" Tian Chanzi said meaningfully. Tang Zheng's heart skipped a beat. He really couldn't hide anything from Tian Chanzi's discerning eyes, but he said without changing his expression, "If he's not framing me, then what is? Why are you siding with an outsider?" After that, Tang Zheng walked away without looking back. Guilty conscience. Tian Chanzi shouted at Tang Zheng's back. Tang Zheng didn't say anything. When he returned to his room, he thought of Mu Hongyan who lived next door. He wondered if he should climb over the wall. But when he thought that Tian Chanzi must be secretly watching, he temporarily suppressed the idea in his heart. Ding! A text message came in. Rest early, good night. Mu Hongyan sent a text message. Mu Hongyan had never sent him a good night text before. He felt warm in his heart and quickly replied, "Did you miss me?" This text message was like a stone sinking into the sea. There was no reply. He guessed that she might have fallen asleep, so he fell into a deep sleep. But he didn't know that this text message kept Mu Hongyan awake for most of the night. She had been wondering whether to reply or not. She was very worried that Tang Zheng would come in the middle of the night. What would happen if he found out? But there was also a faint expectation in her heart. She was much less reserved than other girls. She knew what she needed. Of course, she was very eager, but her rationality stopped her. If Tang Zheng really sneaked in, she was afraid that she wouldn't resist. In the end, she struggled until she was exhausted and fell into a deep sleep. Tian Chanzi used his energy to eavesdrop for a long time, but there was no sound. He sighed. How could this guy be so stupid? Although this Mu Hongyan's yin qi was weak, it was better than nothing. He was actually indifferent to such a great beauty. He was really a blockhead. If Tang Zheng knew Tian Chanzi's thoughts, he would probably be impatient to climb over the wall. The next day, Mu Hongyan and Bruce left to deal with business matters. Tang Zheng was called in by An early in the morning. She volunteered to take Tang Zheng on a tour of her country. Last time, Tang Zheng came and went in a hurry, so he didn't have time to properly appreciate this country. Tang Zheng couldn't refuse, so he could only follow her. Tian Chanzi didn't want to be a third wheel behind the two of them, so he left the palace on his own. When Tang Zheng saw the team ready to go, he realized how wise Tian Chanzi's decision was. With so many attendants surrounding him, how could he play? Tang Zheng didn't like this kind of life. And saw through Tang Zheng's thoughts. Her eyes lit up and she whispered, "Do you have a way to slip away from under their noses? We can get rid of them and play by ourselves." Tang Zheng was also a fearless person, so he readily agreed, "No problem, then we'll think of a way to slip away." Bezer and the others were still bitterly waiting for Princess Anne to get on the carriage, but they didn't notice that the two people had already jumped down from the palace's window, which was more than 10 meters high. They quietly fell into a dense forest nearby. And had a rebellious spirit hidden in her bones. When she sneaked into the forest, her cheeks were red with excitement, as if she was drunk. I've always wanted to escape from their eyes and ears, but every time I didn't succeed. This time, with your help, I finally succeeded. When your cultivation is high in the future, this will only be a small matter. Tang Zheng lightly said. When will my cultivation be as high as yours? Anne's expression darkened as she said dejectedly. If you use the crystals to absorb the energy within, your cultivation will naturally be twice the result with half the effort. Crystals? Anne's expression stiffened. Of course she knew that her father had more than 2 crystals, but as for how many he had, she didn't know. You won't tell me that your father really doesn't have any more crystals, right? Tang Zheng said with interest. And awkwardly said, so you already know. Not only do I know, even Tian Chanzi knows. Tang Zheng didn't want to hide it from her. Crystals were really good things. Although he now had Qi Yu's heart's blood and didn't need to absorb the energy of crystals, the people around him needed it too much. Master actually knows about it too. Annie was shocked. Your father specially invited Tian Chanzi this time. It's not as simple as just wanting to see him, right? You should have other requests. Since we're not outsiders, you might as well just get straight to the point with Tian Chanzi. This was Tang Zheng's guess, so he directly told her, there was no need to beat around the bush. Anne's expression kept changing, thinking that she had to tell her father about this matter. But she didn't want to let this matter spoil her mood. In the blink of an eye, her face was full of sunshine as she said, "Let's not talk about this. Let's quickly leave this forest and go to the main street. My country has a long history and has many famous scenic spots. Your trip will definitely be worthwhile. Then I'll wait and see." Before coming out, Anne had specially dressed up so that people who weren't familiar with her wouldn't be able to recognize her. The two of them walked along the streets, which were filled with the ancient charm of history. This country's population wasn't large, so it wasn't as busy as their home country. It was very leisurely and comfortable. There were many cafes along the street, and many people sat inside and ordered a cup of coffee without doing anything, lazily basking in the sun. Tang Jing couldn't help but sigh. This was a developed country. His own country was too far behind and still had a long way to go. Hundreds of years ago, his own country was still standing at the top of the world, but the world had changed and it had fallen to this point. Huaxia will definitely rise. Tang Zheng was full of confidence. And was like a lively spirit, full of vitality. Unknowingly, she grabbed Tang Zheng's hand and didn't let go. Her hands seemed to have no bones, slightly cold and very soft. It was very comfortable to hold in his hand. The two of them toured the ancient ruins and visited the magnificent and mysterious church. In the end, Tang Zheng actually saw a Chinese tour group in the crowd. Chinese tour groups had been criticized for all these years. They were said to be of poor quality and had lost their face overseas. But this tour group didn't have such bad habits. Clearly, one couldn't generalize from one side. Look at your countrymen. Princess Anne also saw this tour group. Let's go over and say hello. After saying this, she pulled him to the front of the group of tourists and waved in a friendly manner. Friends of Huaxia, hello everyone, welcome to my country. This friendliness stunned everyone. Such a beautiful foreign girl could actually speak Huaxia. This made them very surprised. Hello, hello. Everyone responded excitedly. I hope you like my country. Princess Anne said. Yes, this country is very beautiful. Everyone praised politely, but more people noticed Tang Zheng, who was holding hands with Anne. Suddenly, everyone's eyes lit up. Could this foreign girl be this young man's girlfriend? Then this young man must be from Huaxia. He really brought glory to the country by finding such a beautiful foreign girl. Hello, everyone. Tang Zheng also smiled and greeted in a friendly manner. Wow, you're really from Huaxia. Handsome, you're so awesome. Everyone gave him a thumbs up. Tang Zheng smiled lightly and said, I hope you have fun. Seeing that someone in the crowd had already taken photos of him and Anne, he pulled Anne and prepared to leave. But Anne saw that the little girl in front of her was very cute. She bent down and held her face, praising, wow, what a cute little girl. Suddenly, Anne felt a hot liquid sprinkle on her face. She touched it subconsciously and her hand was full of blood. Tang Zheng's reaction was faster than Annie's. He saw that the moment Annie bent down, the little girl's mother's chest bloomed with a dark red flower of blood. Sniper rifle. Tang Zheng's nerves immediately tensed up. He shouted, get down, and pushed Anne and the little girl to the ground. Whoosh. Chapter 9:16. Tang Zheng sensed the bullets coming from behind him. In order to avoid shocking the world, he did not use the holy armor shield. Instead, he quickly carried Anne and the little girl and quickly dodged. In a flash, a single hole appeared on the stone slab on the ground. White smoke rose from the hole and stone chips flew everywhere. Ah! Everyone finally reacted and screamed as they scattered in all directions. The woman who was shot fell into a pool of blood. No one knew if she was dead or alive. Tang Zheng firmly used his body to protect Anne and the little girl. He suddenly turned around and saw a few tall and strong men with sideburns rushing out of an off-road vehicle. These people wore baseball caps, camouflage pants, black short-sleeved t-shirts, and tactical vests. They held rifles in their hands and looked like they did not want anyone to get close to them. Mercenaries. Tang Zheng had seen this kind of outfit in a movie before. It was a standard mercenary outfit. Who were these people targeting? Anne? He quickly recalled the scene just now. The bullet was aimed at Anne. However, by chance, Anne bent down and the little girl's mother became a sacrifice. A strong murderous intent surged in his heart. It was not only because these people were targeting Anne, but also because of him. An unfamiliar compatriot was shot and fell to the ground. These people aimed their guns at Anne from afar and pulled the trigger at the same time. Tang Zheng did not care about his own safety. He waved his war spirit. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. Sword chi vibrated and intertwined into a huge invisible sword net. Puff puff puff, the bullets hit the sword net. The air vibrated and set off a biting cold wind that blew in all directions. A few trees nearby were cut in half. Everyone screamed and ran away in fear. The mercenaries did not expect the bullets to lose their power in midair and fell to the ground one after another. This scene was beyond their common sense. However, they were well-trained soldiers. Attacking was their only thought. Although they could not understand the situation, they did not retreat. They directly stood a few meters away from Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng did not dare to move. Although Anne was also a cultivator, her strength was too weak. In this situation, she did not have the strength to protect herself. If he rushed out to deal with this group of people, in case the hidden sniper attacked, her life would be taken. He was the one who brought Anne out. He would definitely not let anyone hurt her and the little girl in her arms. Looking at the little girl, he thought of Nana at home. They were at the same age as flowers. They should bloom brilliantly and not wither. There were so many mercenaries, and there was even a sniper hiding in the dark, so Tang Zheng couldn't care less about shocking the world. With his finger, war spirit, he directly flew out. Since he could not leave Anne, he would use the sword to attack. These mercenaries would never have dreamed that he would have such a method. War spirit was as fast as lightning. With a sword, it pierced through the chest of a mercenary. A huge bloody hole appeared on his chest. He stared with his eyes wide open. He could not believe that he had died just like that. Seeing this, the other mercenaries turned pale with fright. However, they did not retreat. They changed the magazine and continued to pull the trigger. The bullet shells scattered all over the ground. Gotcha! The sword net was finally unable to bear the burden and shattered. Seeing this, the other party became excited. The bullets shot over even more crazily. In for a penny, in for a pound. Since he had already used the war soul, he might as well take out the holy armor shield as well. The sacred armor shield flashed and appeared in his hands. Bang bang bang. The bullets hit the sacred armor shield, but the sacred armor shield was unscathed. It did not even leave a mark. This was much stronger than the bulletproof vest they were wearing. Seeing Tang Zheng's endless tricks, the mercenaries looked at each other in dismay. Even if their hearts were firm and they didn't know what fear was, seeing these things that were beyond their knowledge, their hearts couldn't help but beat like a drum. Kill! Tang Zheng angrily roared, and the battle's soul sword attacked again. It descended from the sky, and with a poochie sound, it directly chopped down on the head of a mercenary. Then, from top to bottom, it did not stop at all. In an instant, the mercenary was split into two, and the two halves of his body fell to the sides. The mercenaries were experienced and knowledgeable, but seeing this kind of death, their faces turned ugly. They hurriedly shouted into their headphones, "Quick, shoot!" A powerful bullet shot out and hit the sacred armor shield with a bang. It was still unable to break through the sacred armor shield's defense. Another sniper. This time, Tang Zheng finally caught the trajectory of the bullet. He looked up and saw the roof of a building dozens of meters away. He squinted his eyes. Although it was dozens of meters away, he could still vaguely see a gun barrel on the roof. Bang bang bang. The sniper missed and continued to shoot. It was as if he was not afraid of exposing himself. This was because he had to protect his companions as they retreated. The mercenaries saw Tang Zhang's tricks. After attacking for a long time, they finally realized that their mission had failed, so they decisively retreated. They were extremely afraid of the war spirit that was floating in the air. This sword was their nightmare. It could actually fly in the air against common sense. Could it be that it was some kind of high technology? They stopped shooting at Tang Zhang and directly pulled the trigger on the war spirit. The war spirit was hit until it made crackling sounds, but it still firmly stopped in the air. It only slightly swayed a few times. Their movements were very fast. They immediately retreated to the SUV and started the car to prepare to escape. Tang Zhang was furious and roared, "You want to escape? Go to hell." With a point of his finger, the war spirit flew out with a whistling sound and flew in front of the SUV's windshield. Everyone in the car saw the sword that was like a ghost. However, they were sitting in a car that was like an iron wall, so how could they be afraid of a sword? The car engine roared, and the back of the car spewed out black smoke. The car rushed out like a wild beast. Whiz! The war spirit slashed down. Puff! Like cutting tofu, the war spirit slashed through the middle of the SUV. In an instant, the SUV disintegrated. Just like the mercenaries, it was split into two. Boom! The SUV crashed into a big tree on the side of the road and turned into a pile of scrap metal. With a boom, it exploded into a ball of fire and soared into the air. Tang Zhang did not even look at it. He turned around and looked at Anne, whose expression was as usual, and warned, "Don't run around. Take the holy armor shield and protect yourself and her." This was not the first time and had encountered an assassination attempt. This was the tragedy of the royal family. Although they were the focus of attention, they were also the target of public criticism. "Don't worry, I will protect her." Anne hugged the trembling little girl in her arms and said firmly. She also knew that she had brought harm to this little girl and her mother whose life was uncertain. She felt very guilty and said angrily, "We must make the murderer pay with blood." Tang Zhang did not say a word and rushed out like lightning. The war spirit flew back into his hands. He looked around and saw that there were no more snipers on the balcony. He did not give up and directly rushed to the building. With a tap of his foot, he soared into the air. Then, he lightly tapped the wall a few times and soared into the air, like an eagle flying to the roof. Although the others fled in all directions, they did not escape too far. Many people subconsciously used their phones to record this intense battle. Many people's eyes lit up as they looked at Tang Zhang in disbelief. The various methods he displayed were something they had never heard of or seen before. Of course, many people also subconsciously thought that Tang Zhang's war spirit and holy armor shield were high-tech products. But when Tang Zhang walked up from the wall as if he was walking on flat ground, they were so scared that their phones almost fell to the ground. Was this still a human? Everyone looked at each other in dismay as if they had discovered a new continent. They all shared this video on the internet. A motorcade drove out from the corner of the street and rushed towards Anne like lightning. Everyone's heart tightened. Could it be another mercenary? Everyone's heart could not help but be anxious for Anne and the others. But those with sharp eyes noticed the royal family's insignia on the motorcade and cried out in alarm. Why would the royal family's motorcade appear here? Everyone looked at each other in dismay, not knowing what to do. But when they saw that the motorcade had not yet stopped, a group of people jumped out. The first to bear the brunt was Bezer. Bezer had never been as anxious as he was today. Originally, he was going to accompany Her Highness to tour the city. But he did not expect that Anne and Tang Zhang would disappear. Without a doubt, these two people deliberately wanted to get rid of them. He knew that Tang Zhang's strength, and all of them combined could not compare to him. But after all, this was his duty, and he could not push his responsibility to Tang Zhang. So, he still led a group of guards to look for Princess Anne in the city. Fortunately, there were only a few famous scenic spots in the city, so it did not take long for them to find this place. But they did not expect to hear the fierce sound of gunfire, as if they had come to a battlefield. They realized that something was wrong and quickly rushed over. When they saw the messy battlefield, the shocking sight of corpses and car wreckage, they realized how tragic the battle was. Bazer's heart sank to the bottom of the valley. How was Princess Anne? If something happened to her, he would not be able to live. Princess Anne had helped him before, and he remembered it in his heart. He would rather sacrifice himself than let her be hurt. Princess Annie saw Bazer and the others and hurriedly called out, "I'm here." This was like the sound of nature, and they all breathed a sigh of relief. They rushed over and surrounded Princess Annie in the middle, forming a human wall. Every one of them was armed with a rifle, and they were on alert. Princess Anne finally stood out from behind the holy armor shield. The crowd in the distance also saw her. Someone finally recognized her and shouted, "Princess Anne, it's Her Highness." Anne was the first princess in Europe. Although there were many princesses in Europe, there was no doubt that she was the most famous and the most popular one. Only then did everyone realize that it was the royal motorcade. It turned out that Princess Anne was the one who was attacked. Who would be so daring to assassinate Princess Annie? Chapter 9:17. Tang Jing climbed to the top of the building and saw a figure jump down from the top of the building. He quickly chased after it but found that it was a rope between the two floors. The sniper was already in the middle of the rope with a pulley. The sniper seemed to have sensed that there was someone behind him and suddenly turned his head, only to find Tang Jing standing not far away, staring straight at him. The sniper was so shocked that he almost fell from the sky. How did this person get up? Why was he so fast? Whoosh! Tang Jing moved. He stepped on the rope and chased after the sniper as if he was walking on flat ground. He was much faster than the sniper. The sniper's eyes flashed with horror. He grabbed the pulley with one hand and took out his pistol with the other. He aimed at Tang Jing and pulled the trigger. The bullets flew past Tang Jing, but he didn't slow down. He flew over the sniper's head and reached the top of the opposite building first. The sniper was terrified. There was no way to retreat. He was dozens of meters above the ground. He would definitely die if he fell. So he could only watch as he got closer and closer to Tang Jing. His magazine was empty and there was nothing he could do. Tang Jing shot out like lightning, grabbing the sniper's neck and pulling him down from the air. The sniper tried to struggle but couldn't move at all. "Tell me, who sent you here? Do you want to kill Princess Anne or deal with me?" Tang Jing asked murderously. "I won't tell you," the sniper said stubbornly. "Even if you don't tell me, I have a way to find out." Tang Jing didn't want to waste time with him. He wanted to use the soul-searching technique. However, with a bang, the sniper's head exploded. Red and white liquid exploded in all directions. Tang Jing was scared out of his wits and hurriedly dodged far away. The sniper softly fell to the ground, but his head had already been blown away. Could there be another sniper? Tang Jing looked around but didn't find anything suspicious. Moreover, he didn't hear the sound of a bullet. A bomb. He immediately thought of a possibility. Could it be that the sniper had installed a mini bomb in his head and detonated it remotely? He sucked in a breath of cold air. This meant that the enemy had not been completely eliminated, and there were still enemies spying on them in the dark. He was worried about Anne's safety, so he didn't waste any time at the top of the building. He jumped down from the top of the building, and with a quick tap of his toes on the wall, he landed firmly on the ground. A group of royal guards rushed over. When they saw him jump down from such a high building without a single scratch, they all turned pale with fright. "The sniper's body is on the rooftop," Tang Jing said and quickly returned to the scene of the incident. The guards surrounded Princess Anne as if they were facing a great enemy, fearing that the enemy would attack. Anne lay beside the little girl's mother and pressed down on the spot where she was shot in the chest to stop the blood from flowing out. "She's not dead?" Tang Jing was shocked and couldn't help but feel a little relieved. If this innocent person was really implicated and lost his life, whether it was him or Anne, they would both feel very sad and guilty. He took 3 steps and rushed over. When Anne saw Tang Zheng, she was like a drifting duckweed that finally found its roots. She anxiously shouted, "Tang Zheng, quickly save her. Let me do it." Tang Zheng supported the woman, his true chi flowed, and he immediately investigated her injuries. The bullet was left in the chest, but it didn't hurt the main organs and aorta. The only trouble was that the bullet was still in the body. If it stayed there for a long time, it would be dangerous. The little girl was crying on the side, crying and shouting, "Mom, wake up, don't leave me." Seeing this scene, Tang Zheng and Anne's heart tightened. Tang Zheng quickly comforted her, "Child, don't cry, your mother is fine, I will save her." The little girl didn't understand, sobbing, "You must save my mother, I only have one mother." Bezer urged, "Your Highness, let's leave here first. This is the square, it is very spacious and there are many eyes. If there is a sniper, then it will be difficult for us to guard against." Bezer looked at the surrounding crowd and the surrounding buildings, afraid that another bullet would shoot out from somewhere. As Anne's bodyguard, of course he first considered her safety. This was his duty. Anne was not moved and firmly said, "I will not leave, she was injured because of me, unless she is out of danger. Princess, we will send her to the hospital." Bezer quickly persuaded. "Your persuasion is useless, I must see with my own eyes that her life is not in danger, then I will leave." Anne persisted. "Stop arguing." Tang Zheng shouted, stopping the two, "I will save her, be quiet for me." Anne was overjoyed and quickly asked, "Really?" But seeing the serious look on Tang Zheng's face, she quickly covered her mouth. Bezer wanted to persuade again, but seeing Tang Zheng's appearance, he swallowed back his words. Tang Zheng silently urged his internal energy, one of his internal energy protected her heart, while the other carefully pushed the bullet out of her body. Under everyone's eyes, the bullet was pushed out little by little, falling to the ground with a crisp sound. Anne and Bezer were already used to this, but the other bodyguards had an expression of disbelief. Tang Zheng quickly used his internal energy to seal the blood vessels around the wound, stopping the bleeding. Then he picked her up and said, "Get in the car, we are going to the hospital." And held the pretty girl's hand and said, "I will go with you." Tang Zheng did not refuse. Bezer had objections, but he did not dare to show it, and could only order his subordinates to immediately move. Tang Zheng quickly got into the car, but a Hua Xia woman timidly rushed over, shouting and screaming, but was stopped by the bodyguards. Tang Zheng glanced and saw that it was someone from the tour group, perhaps this woman's friend. He shouted, "Let her come over." Bezer hesitated and flew into a rage. "What are you standing there for, didn't you hear? Let her come over." The bodyguards did not dare to stop them, and the woman rushed over, asking in a panic, "How is she? Is she in danger? You are her friend, right? Get in the car, we are going to the hospital." Tang Zheng said as he got into the car, and the others also got in one by one. The motorcade rushed to the hospital, and at the same time, more than 10 police cars drove out from the streets, protecting the motorcade, sounding the alarm, and headed to the hospital. The cars on the road gave way to the motorcade, and there was a lot of discussion when they saw the motorcade, especially the royal cars, which aroused a strong interest. At the same time, the internet was in an uproar. The video of Princess Anne's assassination had skyrocketed to millions of views, and it was still rising. Everyone started to accuse those evil people of daring to do such a thing to Princess Annie, who was loved by everyone, and even had flowers blooming in her sight. Of course, the other focus of people's attention was the unbelievably powerful man in the video. A hero saving a beauty, envied by others. This man was soon found out by people, and it turned out to be the princess's mysterious knight. Was this knight specially sent by God to save the princess? Every time the princess was in danger, he seemed to come from the sky and save the princess. Originally, many people were still cursing this mysterious knight for being so lucky to win the heart of Princess Anne, but seeing this scene, many of them were convinced and sighed. With such powerful strength, it was no wonder that he could attract the princess. Of course, Princess Annie's valiant appearance when she saved the people had attracted many people's attention. Many people had turned into her fans and liked this straightforward princess. Tang Zheng and the others, of course, didn't know about the uproar on the internet. They had already rushed to the hospital, and the hospital had received the notice in advance and immediately sent the injured to the operating room for rescue. Princess Anne sat at the door of the operating room, holding the little girl's hand, and looked at the operating room anxiously. Tang Zheng comforted her, "Don't worry, he will be fine." Anne's face was painful, and she said guiltily, "But I'm still worried that he was shot because of me." Tang Zheng's heart sank. He couldn't get away from this matter. If he wasn't from Huaxia, and wouldn't have gone to ask about this tour group. "Your Highness, it's not your fault. The bad guy is too evil." At this time, the patient's friend who had been silent all this time spoke. Although she was concerned about the safety of her friend, she had been very nervous. After all, the other party was the princess, and for many people, the princess was an existence that they could only look up to. Although Anne was approachable, she was still very nervous. Hearing her say this, Anne finally breathed a sigh of relief and said, "Don't worry, I will definitely get justice for her. I will definitely not let the murderer go unpunished." On the way, Tang Zheng had already told them that the sniper was killed, but also that the accomplice was still there. The always benevolent princess Anne finally lost her temper. While in the car, she called the king to inform him that the country's machinery was already in operation, and it was necessary to get to the bottom of this matter. After calming down, Tang Zheng figured out the ins and outs of the matter, and asked doubtfully, "How did this group of killers know where you were so clearly?" Anne's expression froze. Although they were acting alone today, the attractions they visited were more or less the same as what they had planned. Unless someone knew their itinerary in advance, how could they have arranged for the mercenaries to wait here so coincidentally? "Are you saying that there's a mole among us?" Hearing this, Beizer's expression became very unpleasant. He was the princess's personal guard, and if there was anyone who knew her itinerary, it was one of them. "Your Highness, it's not me. How could I do such a thing?" Beizer hurriedly explained. "I know it's not you," Anne said. Beizer breathed a sigh of relief, but then his heart sank again. He was fully in charge of the princess's safety, and even the guards were carefully selected by him. If there was a mole among them, he couldn't absolve himself from the blame. "Your Highness, I can't absolve myself from the blame. Don't worry, I will definitely find the mole," Beizer said resolutely. You're tuning into the Dreamy Love Stories YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.